What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. 5 of chapter 116 Misunderstanding Advertisement. Although the other party also covered up, his body shape directly revealed his identity. Moonlight Moria, one of the 7 warlords of the sea, appears. There are 2 horns on the forehead, sharp ears and teeth, and there are cross-shaped sutures from the head to the neck that resemble wounds. Wearing a black top hat and sunglasses, with a coat draped behind him. It just looks a bit like a zombie. Secondly, I feel that this guy is a bit stupid for not retracting his neck. This is the first impression he gave Swain. There was not only one payment office, Swain went to the Maliana team specifically. As soon as I got close, I heard his sharp voice. How dare you ask me for money? Do you know who I am? Be careful I turn you into a walking zombie, hee 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 hee. The pirate who charged for the checkpoint didn't care about him, he just asked for the fee. It's not like he had never seen anyone more arrogant than Moria, and in the end, he ended up being eaten by fish. Hurry up and pay the fee. I know you are great. There are people behind you. If my performance is not enough this month, I will be punished. The person who spoke obviously did not take him seriously. This made Moria so angry that his fangs were exposed, and the fierce look in his eyes seemed to want to eat him. Then, he raised his hand and took out 1 million belly from his backpack. Thunder, little rain. The toll collector also glanced at him disdainfully. When Moria saw this, he was furious and said, "When I recall the corpses of a few strong men, I will massacre this island." Yes, he came here this time to find the bodies of strong men, especially the former 4 emperors, Kaido. As long as he gets Kaido, his strength will increase dramatically. His shadow fruit ability can pull apart other people's shadows like tearing off tape, and at the same time cut off the target's shadow. The person whose shadow has been taken away will be burned to ashes when exposed to the sun. If the stolen shadow is placed in a corpse, it can be turned into a zombie. The zombie itself has the same combat power and personality as the original shadow owner. Fruit abilities cannot be transferred to zombies. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but chuckle. Swain thought he was going to watch a big show, but he didn't do anything at all, which disappointed him greatly. Doubts arose in my heart. This Moria should not be timid. After all, he was the man who dared to go to Blackbeard's territory alone to save his companions. Based on this alone, Swain still recognized this person, even though he was a bit cruel. Seeing that it was still early in the distance, Swain followed Mariah to see what he was going to do. The master of the pirate group who lives on this island is named Gurney. He is a person for whom the world government has put a huge bounty on his head. The bounty is as high as 2.5 billion belly. But he can be considered a pirate from the old era. He had fights with Sengoku and Garp back then, but he managed to escape. After One Piece Roger was executed, the era of great pirates began. He used his fame to win over a group of strong men, which made him famous. Now in his palatial residence, he was quietly listening to the report from his men. One of the Shichibukai, Moonlight Moria, appeared on the island, but her motive has not yet been discovered. Advertisement Gurney took a puff of his cigarette and said, "Yeah." Then he waved his hand to let him down. A Shichibukai would not cause any harm to him. Is there anything else? Gurney noticed that the subordinate who was reporting the news was hesitant. He has always been cautious in doing things, and his subordinates have naturally developed the habit of being cautious. We also speculate that 4 Emperor Swain is also here. Gurney immediately shouted. What? His expression changed. As a person who could survive from the old era, he was now walking on thin ice. When I suddenly heard that Swain had arrived, I was naturally frightened. My first reaction was to come and seize the territory. Are you sure? He asked. No, we're not sure, and we don't dare to investigate rashly. The man didn't expect the leader's reaction to be so big. I couldn't help but regret reporting this incident. Sure enough, Gurney's next order gave him a headache. As long as you don't alert him, follow his every move and report to me at any time. He had no choice but to nod in agreement. Not alerting the 4 Emperors level experts? This is simply making you feel uncomfortable. Then a strange scene occurred. The 3 of them all followed the same path as each other. The difference is that Moria didn't notice Swain, but Swain had already noticed the person behind him. Why are you following me? Swain looked at each other and asked. I didn't, he said harshly. The next moment he felt an awe-inspiring aura, as if there was a knife hanging over his head. This was Swain wearing sunglasses. The latter was not sure that he was the 4 Emperors and was always giving himself psychological comfort. As Diweian's pressure on him became stronger and stronger, his psychological defense finally could no longer withstand it. The leader of my family asked me to confirm your identity. Who is the leader of your family? His name is Gurney. Swain searched for the name in his mind and finally remembered it. Then he moved his sunglasses to his forehead to reveal his face. You tell him that I'm just passing by to add some information and then leave. Swain guessed that the other party had misunderstood him, so he made it clearer. When the latter saw Swain's appearance, his face showed horror. These were the living 4 Emperors standing in front of him. He clenched his clothes tightly with his hands, swallowed and looked very nervous. It was not until Swain let him go that he hurriedly reported to Gurney. Swain shook his head and smiled bitterly. As his status rose, everything he did would be magnified by others. After handling this matter, Swain was shocked to find that Moria was missing. I originally wanted to see what he was going to do, but now that I lost him, I gave up the idea. After all, in Swain's eyes, he couldn't make a big splash. Right now, the most important thing is to go to the Golden City, Chapter 117 game. Advertisement. Swain was sitting on a yacht, looking at the luxurious decoration and feeling a little funny. These were all gifts given to him by Gurney, and they were the kind that he couldn't accept without accepting them. Seeing the other party's frightened expression as he bid farewell to me, I felt even more emotional. Strength can have everything. But one thing surprised him. Gurney promised that if anything happened in the future, he would be willing to help. This is also a side reaction. He wants to invest in the Swain pirates. Swain, an emerging force, will survive for decades to come. The advantages of being a good friend outweigh the disadvantages, and he can still figure out which one is lighter and which is more important. It didn't take long for Swain to see a splendid city. The light and dynamic singing could be seen from a distance. An independent country recognized by the world government, the world's largest entertainment city, Grand Tesoro. If Beehive Island is the paradise of pirates, then this city is the paradise of New World. You can see marines, agents, pirates, merchants, here. As soon as it sailed into the port, a huge, shaped door brings great shock to people. It can be as high as 100 meters, and it is entirely made of pure gold. This makes one have to marvel at Tesoro's ability. There is also a guardrail on the top of the door, with a young and beautiful girl dancing on it. What surrounds your ears are songs that make people ecstatic. Just listening to it can make people immersed in this city. It's great here, Swain praised. If I bring Yishao over, I guess he won't even want to go back to Beehive Island. After all, he has two hobbies. The first is eating ramen, and the second is gambling. With the experience of being recognized last time, Swain disguised himself this time to be even more difficult to identify. After verifying his identity, Swain walked to the shore. As soon as he stepped on it, he felt the ground was crisp and soft, as if he were stepping on water. A beautiful young lady came to receive him. Seeing Swain's expression, he smiled and said, "This is a material called sea wave fur. It feels like walking on water." This feeling is very familiar to Swain. As a dividend recipient of seawater, he naturally knows what it feels like to step on water, especially on wavy water. It feels like someone is massaging your steps, making you want to lie down in the water and sleep. "Sir, what do you want to play? We have craps, pai gow, stud, money plate, ball rolling." Advertisement. He talked about nearly 30 kinds of gameplay in one breath, which made his mind confused. In his past and present lives, he could not even play more than 10 games. The most he played was landlords, mahjong and football. He had never even heard of the gameplay that the young lady mentioned. If Yishao was allowed to play, he might be able to have a good fight with others. Seeing Swain's confused expression, she was secretly happy and decided to let him try 2 games for free. Seeing that Swain was dressed like a poor man, if she could get him to come in and play, she would be able to complete her workload this month. Grand Tesoro assigns certain tasks to each girl, and if she fails to complete them, she will be punished. The first item. Mark. This is the name she got from her mouth. Swain prefers to call it Tuhu. But one difference is that he replaced the pot with a skull. Weighing the heavy arrows in his hands, he didn't care much. If you win 1 bid, you will get 100,000 berries. If you win 2 bids, you will get 200,000 berries, and so on. Swain raised his hand and voted. With such a simple gameplay, it would be an insult to him if he lost even 1 penny. All 10 marks hit. Wow, that's amazing. The reward this time is 5.5 million berries. Can I ask for the next round? The young lady shouted with a suitably surprised expression. After seeing Swain nod in agreement, she clapped her hands, and the thrown pot in front of her was replaced by a large turntable. The turntable is nearly 5 meters in diameter and looks a bit like a bronze alloy. There are still 10 skulls engraved on it, but it is more eye-catching than before. The bottom is driven by gears to rotate. The base price for this gameplay is 3.5 million belly. The higher the price is raised, the higher the reward will be, she encouraged from the side. Swain smiled in his heart. The first round is free, but the second round is charge. This is a bit ugly. However, this little trick is still too simple for him. As the turntable starts to rotate, the first 3 marks are still easy to hit, and the speed starts to increase when the 4th mark is reached. He can clearly see any trajectory with his sense of sight, but it is very slow in his eyes. After shooting the 5th target, an accident happened. The force Swain threw was enough to make the mark reach the speed of a bullet, but it was so difficult to hit. After a subtle feeling, I suddenly realized, it's a magnet. The magnetic field is generated by electromagnetic method. The magnetic force is not big or small, but it is enough to make it difficult for the target to have a correct trajectory. Sure enough, 9 times out of 10 you bet, you lose. If it weren't for his strong sense of knowledge, this small detail would not have been discovered. Chapter 118 Glimmer advertisement finally started. Looking at the high-speed rotating turntable, it may be difficult to know that there is a black hole inside that can swallow human bone marrow. She began to cheer up in her heart. If Swain really won the Grand Slam again, there would be a few more marks on her back. Although, this may destroy the family of the handsome young man in front of him. But isn't that what this world is like? If they treat me unfairly, I will attack them with darkness. She was so cruel in her heart that the unfairness of the world to her was to exchange for the pain of others. Then he quietly adjusted the power of the large electric volt. Swain's face looked a little uncertain, he could clearly feel the magnetism. Isn't this treating gamblers as fools? There's no need to hide anything when it comes to technology. Although he was not angry in his heart, with his strength, he could make this woman disappear from this world with just a wave of his hand. Even if he kills dozens or hundreds of innocent people, the world cannot punish him, because he is now the four emperors. People in troubled times are not as good as easygoing dogs. This is a bloody example. But he would rather break her down on a mental level. Magnetism? Coward? Everything is nothing in the face of absolute strength? I saw him push back a little, and a stream of arrows shot out quickly with the blessing of his strength. The speed is so fast that you can only see the afterimage. Bang! The arrow shot directly through the skull on the turntable. It happened in the blink of an eye. Before the young lady on the side could react, Swain shot out 2 more arrows. All hit. The latter's face turned pale, and he looked at Swain in horror. Is this a human being? The hanging heart in her heart finally died. Thinking of the wealth lost this time, his feet collapsed and he collapsed on the ground. She even had the urge to block those few times with her body. It will probably only make a few bloody holes appear on myself, which will not help. Watching Swain's mouth move up and down, he didn't say anything after all. Beg for mercy. Some people would even kill their relatives for money, let alone her, a woman who met by chance. The only thing this world has taught her is to recognize her own insignificance. If he missed just 1 arrow, Swain would still get 5 million belly. However, he was not in a happy mood. First, it was useless for him to ask for money. Most of the things he wanted were purchased from pirates for $0. The second is that he understands some of the interests behind gambling, which was also mentioned when Yi Xiao chatted with him. Advertisement. Seeing that this pretty young lady's face was covered with tears, she stopped wanting to laugh at her. He doesn't want his happiness to be based on such low-level people. The establishment is also at the level of Akainu, warring states, and 5 elders. What's more, he didn't want these rewards in the first place. Alas. I sighed in my heart. He slowly put his hand over and said, "Are you okay?" Seeing this hand, although I was very scared, I still had the trained stress response. "Thank you, I'm fine." Secretly turning his head to wipe away his tears. "Congratulations, you have won 5 million berries." Swain's heart softened when he heard this, and he could feel her body trembling when he put his hand on her. "Are you single?" Swain asked. After hearing Swain's question, the other party's eyes first looked confused and then filled with anger. "I will never sell my body. Even if you die, you won't let others trample you." "I mean, where is your family?" He also noticed something was wrong and explained to her. When she heard about her family, she looked a little lonely. Family? The days when the family was comfortable and happy came to mind. "It's just me and my brother, everyone else is dead." The calmness in her tone was extremely inconsistent with her age. Every year, a group of people will become golden sculptures. If her performance is not up to standard, her brother will also turn into gold. After this time, I will probably be the only one left. Hearing Swain's irrelevant answer, I couldn't help but feel disappointed. Yes. Why should he help him? She wanted to harm him just now. But Swain's next words made her cry with joy. "I don't need these rewards, just take care of yourself." This. She didn't seem to have reacted yet. After taking a look at Swain's serious expression, her tears welled up again. 10 years have passed since she was sold here. This was the first time except for his brother that he felt the warmth outside. The companion's intrigues for performance, the boss's ruthlessness for the guests. She remembered it all vividly. This world is like this. In all the intertwining of evil and sin, anyone who shows small evil will be considered good, not to mention that his actions are truly good. Need me to do something for you?" she said while wiping her tears and nose. "Nothing is needed. I just need you to point out where your boss lives." %Z% 1% it. You have a new boss coming to work. Chapter 119. Where did you come from as a spy? Advertisement. The interior of Grand Tesoro can be said to be extremely luxurious. There are many urban buildings and lights shining on it, emitting golden light everywhere, as if entering a city made of gold. Swain stood at the highest point, looking at the city, and the darkness that could not be illuminated by the golden light was taken into his eyes. The boy who slayed the dragon eventually became an evil dragon. What was the difference between Tesoro and these low-level people? With his ability, he could help many people, but he chose to inflict his hatred of the celestial dragons on his former self. Isn't this a tragedy? Woolen cloth. Relax your whole body, straighten your hands, and slowly lower yourself into a dive. Falling from an altitude of nearly 1,000 meters, the friction between his body and the air caused him to be surrounded by flames, which looked like a comet from a distance. Within a moment, the roar caused by the impact was heard. The landing place is the Golden Palace of Tetsolo. B************. How dare you make trouble here? Shouted a soldier wearing golden armor, sunken eyes and a full beard. Oops, the landing is a little off, Swain muttered. I just wanted to experience the thrill of diving in Assassin's Creed, but I didn't expect that the landing point was wrong. It was only a few centimeters away, which shows how accurate his vision was. Like satellite positioning. No, it can be said to be more accurate than positioning. Answer my question, or I want you to die here, the soldier said reluctantly. His mission was not to disturb the rest of the big shots inside, but now a young man suddenly popped up, which made him nervous. Brother, you don't have a soft tone, Swain asked. Even if Tesoro stood in front of him, he could only lower his head and dare not breathe, let alone a little janitor. The soldier looked at Swain's sharp eyes, his body couldn't help but tremble, and he thought to himself, the look in his eyes just now made me feel like I want to kneel down. Who is it? Those who can serve as a gatekeeper for Tesoro are very good at observing words and expressions. Just like the young man in front of him, the aura he showed was enough to make him unable to resist. He was much stronger than any strong person who cooperated with his boss. Observing this, he asked carefully, who are you looking for? His tone became much lower. Swain became interested instantly. He could tell at a glance that the beard on the other person's face was glued on. It doesn't matter who I am, what's important is that I'm very interested in you, Swain asked, touching his chin. When the other party saw Swain like this, his anus tightened immediately. Swain revealed, are you a revolutionary army, or a marine? He didn't even mention pirates. Judging from the various details of this person, he looked more like a specially trained spy. However, it didn't look like he was sent by the world government. Instead, he felt like he belonged to Marine. Really, after hearing Swain's question, his expression suddenly changed, thinking that he had been betrayed by his companions. Point the gun. Advertisement. So he took the lead to take action, with his fingers covered in armed colors, and he thrust them into Swain's heart with lightning speed. Who gave you the courage to take action against the 4 emperors? This kind of sneak attack may be fast in the eyes of others, but in his eyes he seems to be slow, like an ant. He didn't even make any movement, he just blew a breath, and a seawater railing appeared in front of him to surround it. After the opponent touched the railing, the force of the shock instantly bounced him into the wall, causing a dent. 4 emperors. Swain took off his sunglasses and shook them back and forth in his hands. You're quite brave, kid. He didn't expect that Marine would act decisively. Sent from the Warring States period? Swain asked. In his impression, Clayson was sent as a spy to Doflamingo by the Warring States period. Nowadays, it is not surprising that spies are placed around Tesoro. After all, his influence is still very threatening to Marine. The latter looked at Swain's face and thought it looked familiar. Are you? 4 Emperor Swain. Because he was so surprised, he choked on the blood foam in his mouth and coughed repeatedly. Hey, lower your voice. I want to keep a low profile, Swain reminded. The Marine spy quickly covered his mouth with his hands. So far, no, the biggest pirate he had ever seen in his life. The highest status pirate, whether on Tesoro's side or Marine's side. In my heart I wanted to die for justice, but my body was very honest. Swain tore off the beard on his face, and he turned out to be a young man with a delicate face. You haven't answered my question yet. No. Well, yes, he answered looking at Swain's face. My name is Burrs. I was sent by the Warring States Fleet Admiral to investigate the evidence of the transaction between Tesoro and Doflamingo. He didn't want to come either, but he was tricked by his colleagues, so he had no choice but to become a spy. As an entertainment city, Golden City has joined the world government and is theoretically operating legally. But his situation is similar to Shichibukai. To be precise, he was made with money. After hearing this, Swain thought to himself, it seems that Marine has long wanted to deal with Tesoro. In this case, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. He made up his mind to bring Tesoro under his command in advance. Even if he was conceited, he still had to control him. This was a money tree. At this moment, there was a burst of noise from around. Chapter 120. Tesoro is very dissatisfied. Advertisement. At this time there was a noise from around. The sound of the fight was very small, but it also triggered the alarm device here. A crowd of people poured out, their whole bodies covered in golden armor, with only their eyes and mouth exposed. Holding a golden halberd, it made a ringing sound when walking, making it look very heavy. Burrs immediately shouted, "This man is an assassin, catch him quickly. I really want to create some chaos and then take the opportunity to escape from this place." But what he didn't expect was that the soldiers didn't listen to him, but instead pointed their weapons at him. Bolts understood immediately. It was probably Tesoro's request. He should know who the person in front of him was. I couldn't help but wonder in my heart. It really fits his character, he never trusts anyone. Next moment, a burst of applause came from the palace in front. Why don't you say hello to me? This leaves me no time to hold a banquet to welcome you. A man with a height of 2 meters and a muscular body came out. His hair was green and his hairstyle was a typical slick back. When he appeared, he seemed to have the aura of a nouveau riche. He also wore several valuable diamond rings on his hands. From time to time, he with the ground made a thumping sound. Swain heard what he said and replied, "Why should I tell you in advance? Is there any place in the world that I can't go to?" Obviously not prepared to give him face. He understands the truth very well. Evil people will be punished by evil people. If you act too kindly, you will be looked down upon. Although it is impossible for anyone to despise 4 emperors, human nature is not easy to grasp, and you may be stabbed at a critical moment. Tesoro smiled and said, "You really know how to joke." Swain did not answer his words, which seemed to make him very embarrassed. Tesoro rubbed his palms and asked, "Excuse me, why do you want to come to my place?" Swain still didn't answer, just looked at the other party with a smile. Fortunately, Swain still understood this future crew member and said, "I want to buy your city." When Tesoro heard Swain's answer, his face instantly turned green. Buying this city? This is not pure nonsense. Everyone in the world doesn't know that he is the richest in Tesoro, owning 20% of the world's wealth. He takes both black and white, and even the celestial dragons can look down upon him through his wealth. However, wealth is wealth, and strength is strength. If he could exchange wealth for strength, he would definitely dominate the world. Now he had to look at the face of the man in front of him and speak. 4 emperors. He still knows how to measure things. Advertisement, but in more than 10 years, no 4 emperors have come to make trouble in his territory. Because their identity is like this, as long as you don't mess with them, they won't come to trouble you. But, this is a really strange thing. Have you thought about it? Swain continued to put pressure on him. Stop joking. Tesoro was angry in his heart, but still respectful on the surface. Swain's expression turned gloomy and he said, "Do you think I'm joking with you? I can't bear it anymore, no need to bear it anymore." This was Tesoro's psychological activity, and he said with all his face, "Kill him." The armored soldiers gave the order and immediately besieged them. Swain smiled faintly, and then a wave of Conqueror's domineering power spread around. Before everyone took a few steps, they felt a terrifying momentum, and then they fainted one after another. Tesoro's eyes were filled with coldness at this time. He didn't expect them to be able to defeat Swain, but he didn't expect that they couldn't stop them for even a few seconds, which gave him no time to prepare. Golden Bomb. I saw his right fist raised, armor transformed and wrapped with domineering energy, and the effect of hitting the molten gold cannon was used, using the huge shockwave, thermal radiation and broken gold pieces generated by the explosion. Although the momentum is very strong, in Swain's eyes, it is almost like a child playing house. With a flick of his finger, a wave of blue air appeared and attacked the opponent at the same time. It was almost a crushing push, and Tesoro was directly hit by this force and could hardly stand up. If you were in the awakened fruit state, you could still defeat me in 2 moves, but you don't have this chance anymore. As soon as Swain finished speaking, a figure appeared in front of him like a ghost. He slowly raised his feet and said, "If you beg for mercy now, I will consider letting you live." A hole. Swain heard his answer and stepped on it. The latter didn't seem to expect that the other party would be so decisive. He thought that the other party would definitely ask for something. Etc. Tesoro looked at the sole of this foot and thought that it must be the most expensive pair of shoes in the world. He was able to buy half of his city. Have you thought about it? Swain smiled. A quadrillion belly, Tesoro quoted. Swain's mouth twitched, and his face immediately fell. It seems that you are not very good at it. I have changed my mind. You can rent this city to me for 30 years. No, I will return it to you in 50 years. Save your life and work for me. Although he was very unconvinced, due to his power, he had no choice but to say, "I understand." Chapter 121. The Dove Takes Over the Magpie's Nest advertisement. A few days later, Golden City unilaterally announced that it would terminate its vassal relationship with the world government. This news still caused quite a shock. Although Tesoro's strength is not strong, his influence is not weak. Holy Land, Marie Joya. Is the investigation clear? Saint Satan asked. No, when we went there, the whole city was gone. The man wearing a green and white mask answered. This person is the current team leader of CP0. B**************. D. Do you want to deceive me? Saint Satan said slightly angrily. If this city, which is comparable to a country, can disappear out of thin air, only Lord I Am can do that. The CP0 team leader quickly knelt down and said, "My subordinates investigated the pirates who came back from the Golden City." Well, he is probably right. An old man said, "It is probably Swain's method again. With his ability, it is not a problem at all to move 1 or 2 islands. The god of war is wise. My subordinate's guess is the same as yours," CP0 said flatteringly. His nervous mind relaxed slightly. After receiving the new order from the 5 elders, he went to investigate without stopping. As you can imagine, the result is that you come back empty-handed. He was afraid of the 5 old people from the bottom of his heart. Saint Satan snorted and breathed out hot breath from his nostrils. This kid is really unscrupulous in what he does. If the Knights of God hadn't had the important responsibility of protecting the Holy Land, this kid would have been caught long ago. Marine's trash let him escape time and time again, causing him to become a climate. Since the 4 emperors are not easy to deal with, you send someone to infiltrate Beehive Island to find out the news. Nangwu God ordered. Yes. Rumors began to abound in the Golden City. As the Emperor, Tesoro's rash introduction of world government was still a big sensation. Tesoro has joined the 4 emperors Swain's forces. How is that possible? You think he's stupid? Isn't joining 4 emperors a sheep in a tiger's mouth? Besides, there is no reason to join the 4 emperors. Wouldn't he be happy being the emperor himself? If he has to suffer that crime, I must say it is just a rumor, and he is probably planning something to steal our money. Some people are discussing this here and there. For the people living here, Tesoro's behavior determines their future lives. Different people have different opinions. Some people hope to join the 4 emperors, which means that they no longer owe Tesoro money and no longer have to work for him. The other group of people are those with vested interests who do not want Tesoro to step down. But, advertisement, none of this has much to do with them, because it depends on Swain's thoughts. At this time, in a luxurious interior, Swain looked at Tesoro, who was tied up with 5 flowers. His eyes were full of light, the light emitted by money. The Golden City was indeed taken away by Swain. When he took over all of Tesoro's wealth, he was also surprised by this huge number. As rich as 100 countries. The rumor that he has 20% of the world's wealth and can even use money to get the celestial dragons to do things for him is true. It's just that all this money was enriched by him and left in his own hands, leaving very little behind. This greed is probably the reason why I was afraid of poverty when I was young. Otherwise, I would never be able to spend all my money in a lifetime. Okay, I can grant you a wish. His resentful eyes were really hard to resist. After all, you can be considered a great contributor to me by transferring your wealth to me. Tesoro said bitterly. Just let me go. He couldn't beat him or talk about it, but he felt that the other party didn't have the magnanimity of the 4 emperors and instead cared about everything. What do you say? You have plundered all this from the people. The people's fat and the people's anointing must be returned from his hands to the people's wallets. But he explained no less than 100 times that this was all created by his fruit ability. It's okay if you don't say it, but when you say this, you will be tied up directly, and the greed in your eyes is even more difficult to conceal. It just so happens that the construction of Wano country requires a lot of money. It can be said that a visit to the Golden City will make money directly. Swain was thinking about his great plan in his mind, and did not hear Tesoro's request at all. No? That's fine. I will arrange a good position for you when we get to Beehive Island, which will be considered as compensation for you. Tesoro's face turned green after hearing this, and he regretted not running away earlier. His whole body was tied up with iron chains made of sea stones, which Swain brought specially from Wano country to prevent the other party from escaping. 3 days later, this giant city finally arrived near Beehive Island. The people in the city stretched their necks to look at this strange-looking island. Just as they were wondering, Swain's voice rang out from the radio. Gentlemen and ladies, welcome to Beehive Island. I am Swain, the owner of this island, and I am also the new owner of the Golden City from today on. In addition, all those who choose to join me will be exempted from the money they owe. At this point, Swain's voice paused. What followed was a bustle of people in the city. Because most of the people who can work in this casino are forced to work here because they owe a lot of foreign debts. If you don't want to join, you can leave now, but the island owner will not be responsible for any dangers you encounter along the way. This is not alarmist, but a real hidden danger. As the back garden of pirates, New World is not a simple title. It is very common for ordinary people to sail on the sea, killing people and stealing goods. Chapter 122. In Theft Admiral advertisement, the power of Beehive Island strengthened again, and Luo was full of surprise when he took out the head count report. The combined population of Wano country, Golden City and Beehive Island exceeds 1 million. You must know that the most populous country in the world is the Kingdom of Alabasta, with a population of 10 million. With Beehive Island as its core, Swain has 2 kingdoms under its jurisdiction. It can be said that it is surprising that this number can be reached. The number of people who can serve as warriors has reached 200,000, Luo said with excitement in his voice. Although these people have poor discipline, they are worlds apart from Marines. One thing is stronger than Marine soldiers, that is, their single-player combat capability is higher than that of ordinary Marine soldiers. This is also expected. After all, they are pirates who can sail to the New World. The law of survival of the fittest has long been selected for them. All we can do now is to tame these wild horses. He naturally understood what Luo said. Anyone who dares to disobey will be killed directly. Luo is now like Swain's secretary, sending him many tasks for him to handle every day. This was also what Swain requested. He had communicated with the crew. As the forces are getting stronger and stronger, if they rely on the sloppy management of the past, it will only encourage the arrogance of these already lawless people and make them mistakenly think that they are afraid of them. Then, Swain proposed a system of 4 admirals, under the headings of Southeast, Southeast and Northwest. Norden was granted the title, Admiral of the Eastern King. Yishao was named, Admiral of the North King. Luo was granted the title, Admiral of the King of the West. Claire was named, Admiral of the Southern King. Claire is a pirate who came to seek refuge with Swain. She has always been low-key and has an average reputation. But with his strong strength, he stood out from the crowd, and his strength was as good as Yishao. They guarded the 4 sides for Swain, each with 50,000 leading troops. At the same time, Swain also gave the 4 of them an order. First of all, they must eliminate these people's dissatisfaction and make them fear them. Secondly, train your troops in your spare time to prepare for emergencies. Swain finally knew why Kaido and Big Mom made him king. There is only one thing. The territory is too large and the number of people will lead to a phenomenon. If you want to keep your subordinates motivated, in addition to reward money, the rest can only be given high positions. This is not like the 4 emperors with white beard and red hair, who just want to do what they like and experience the majesty, beauty and romance of this sea. Unlike Luffy, who was purely a free adventurer, if it weren't for the younger brothers who followed him wholeheartedly, it would be difficult for the Straw Hat group to have 100 younger brothers. Of course, it can also be said that each of the 4 emperors is an outstanding person in this world, with their own different acting styles and ideals that are difficult for others to understand. Advertisement: Whitebeard's, family, Kaido's, One Piece, Big Mom's, all nations, red hairs, adventure, Swain's, peace. My thoughts have gone a bit far, so I need to pull back. Looking at Claire's bounty order in his hand, he kept wondering if this could be a spy from the world government. This person seemed to appear out of thin air. He was powerful but not famous. It's like another Fujitora smile. Unless a master like this is one of the Knights of God, it would be difficult for him to have such combat power. However, he did think of Luo's investigation at this time. Claire was born in the North Blue. The country was occupied by Germa 66, and all his family members died in the war. From then on, he began his wandering journey. He started to go to sea as a pirate at the age of 13, and only through hard work did he gain the strength he has today. The reason why he joined Swain was because he had a fight with Yishao and learned that Swain's ambition is world peace and reshaping the rules of the world. Only then did he stop and join this pirate group without any hesitation. Logically speaking, Swain should be happy, but he seemed a little cautious. He understands that his little actions will definitely attract the attention of the world government. First he moves the country, and then accumulates wealth. Some people have money and weapons, and are suspected of being involved with the Revolutionary Army. It's hard not to make them think that Swain has any cooperation with the Revolutionary Army. He rubbed his head and decided not to worry about this headache. He put Claire in the Admiral's position for better surveillance. If he's not a spy, that's fine. If he is, he will definitely make it impossible for him to get out of this island. Claire, who was holding Swain's special tiger talisman, didn't know that her boss was doubting her. He was also quite surprised that Swain gave him so much power and felt happy about Swain's trust in him. Yes, he is not a spy. Rather, he is an auxiliary minister who is willing to sincerely help Swain and fulfill his ideal. He hates war more than anyone else. The soldiers and thieves under my command are disobedient. I won't let them dare to think anything wrong. A cruel smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. As a person who grew up in a dark corner of the world, no one knows how to make a person collapse better than him. Because only by giving hope to others after collapse can we truly control them. So, start with the big purge. Kill, Chapter 123 The Calm Before the Storm. Advertisement within a few days, the soldiers under Claire's management were complaining. He, the 50,000 people, usually has the largest amount of training, and is the least impersonal commander. Soldiers from other regiments who entered here by mistake were frightened and rolled away. A few of them were killed on the spot just for saying a few more words of complaint. Life here is really like ants. Secondly, Claire also made a rule that as long as there is someone who can take his 3 moves, all training can be stopped, and he will also have a separate room and maid. Certainly, since they are under Swain's banner, these maids must be voluntary and can be hired with high salaries. This is also a way to liberate productivity. For a month, dozens of people challenged Claire every day. Only a handful can survive, yes. If the challenge fails, you will pay the price with your life. This is undoubtedly a bet. In Swain's office, he was reading the latest newspaper while sipping tea. There are several news in the newspaper that he is more concerned about. Pirate supernova gathers in Saboti Islands. General Kizaru took action and defeated them one by one. The original 7 warlords of the sea. Bartholomew Bear came to rescue the Straw Hat Pirates, but they were missing. He slowly calculated in his mind that the original plot had now been developed. Originally, Luffy would be sent to Daughter Island by Big Bear, and the others would also go to the training place. Now that Bear has withdrawn from Shichibukai, the only place he can send Luffy to is the Revolutionary Army's main base. According to the investigation by his spies, the Whitebeard pirates have begun to make some movements, and most of the Whitebeard pirates stationed in various places have begun to gradually approach the headquarters. Ace is probably already pushing forward the city, Swain murmured. Although in his previous life, the most difficult thing for him to deal with was the death of Ace, which made little pearls fall from his eyes. But in this life, he has nothing to do with Ace. His partners are more important than Ace and Luffy. Probably less than a month away. Swain was actually a little excited at this time, because this war was no less shocking than Roger's execution. The strongest 4 emperors and marine headquarters are at war. Just because the world government has unconditionally provided the war for the whole world to see, you can know how seriously and confident they are about this matter. There is nothing that can improve morale more than killing the strongest man in the world. What kind of changes will happen if Swain intervenes and sneak attacks on Marijoya? At that time, the 3 emperors of red hair, Whitebeard and Swain will stand. What kind of trump card will marine and world government use? Advertisement, it's really exciting. At the same time, marine headquarters also obtained this troublesome pirate. Tell me what you think, Warring States asked in a low voice. This is a big meeting, and the lieutenant generals and generals of this department will participate together. Akainu was the first to speak. If you catch a pirate, you will naturally execute him. Is it possible that because he is Whitebeard's son, he will receive special treatment? His voice was very hoarse, but the radicalness of his words inevitably made Warring States frown. He didn't say he was going to let him go, but thinking that Sakazuki had this temper, he had no choice but to put aside his dissatisfaction. That's why I want everyone to come up with ideas and brainstorm to come up with a perfect plan, Warring States said with his arms crossed. We should publicly execute Fire Fist Ace to suppress the arrogance of pirates in recent years, a slightly angry voice suggested. Everyone turned to look at him, and Akainu looked satisfied. This is what Marine should do. If he is caught, he will be executed directly. There is no need for so many mother-in-law and mother-in-law things. Kizaru looked unconcerned, as if he was attending a tea party. Sengoku looked at Aokiji, who nodded. This proposal is undoubtedly a good advertisement to enhance Marine's credibility. Marine Jujanga also said at this time, this proposal is very good, but we need to arrange the execution ground in advance to prevent Whitebeard from hijacking it. Shichibukai is used to being idle, so he still needs to issue injunctions and make strategic preparations. Warring States nodded slightly. Based on what I know about Whitebeard, he will definitely come to kidnap Portka's ace. There was no need for him to doubt this, otherwise he would not have convened this meeting at short notice. Where's Garp? Crane asked. It would be a bit unreasonable for him not to come to such an important occasion. He has other things to do, Sengoku said to smooth things over. After all, he knew what his old friend was thinking, and he must have been in agony when he heard the news. One side is for justice, the other side is for family members. What a difficult topic to choose. Everyone unanimously agreed to this plan, and Warring States stood up and said loudly, "Then we will use this plan as the center, mobilize 100,000 elite troops of our headquarters, and at the same time, our Marine Fando will start to build a defense network, so that this execution can go smoothly." As the Warring States order is issued, a storm that can change the world is brewing. Chapter 124 Preparations before the war advertisement. Swain also received news from Raglan, the powerful pirate Swain originally met on Beehive Island. Using only one, poison, to use it for himself, due to the withdrawal of Doflamingo and Big Bear, Marine had to re-invite two powerful pirates to serve as Shichibukai, Raglan being one of them. The news he reported to Swain included this: Marine headquarters issued a compulsory summons order, ordering all Shichibukai to come to Marineland within 2 weeks. Has it really started? Swain looked forward with deep eyes. Swain called Luo. As his doctor and wise general, it would be better to accommodate him on this matter. We have to start making preparations, Swain said solemnly. The tone seemed very serious. When Luo heard his captain's tone, he immediately realized what he meant by prepare. It can be started at any time. Now we have the financial resources, military force, and manpower. If we develop for a period of time. Luo didn't say the second half of the sentence. It was still too risky for him to talk about the sneak attack on the Holy Land Marie Joa. However, his own captain is very stubborn and will not give up until he achieves his goal. He hates the Tianlong people very much. Their starting point is 4 emperors. If they are given 4 or 5 years to develop, they will definitely gather an extremely powerful force. Whitebeard is really going to go to war with Marine headquarters? Luo Yu didn't believe it. Well, Whitebeard's 2nd Division captain, Fire Fist, Ace was captured by Marine and has decided to carry out a public execution in 2 weeks. There was no sound on the other end of the phone. Luo Zai was thinking seriously about this matter, and he found that CSIS plan was really possible to succeed. After all, who would choose to attack Marijoya during a war? Luo asked again. The plan must have a name, right? The name. Let's call it, God Killer. New World, on a quiet island. The sound of rumbling sailing came from the distance, breaking the peace, and the birds and beasts flew away one after another. There is no doubt that these ships all have an eye-catching and majestic flag. Hey, Marco! Shouted a man with 2 swords at his waist. Marco stopped and looked back. Beasta, you came very quickly. They are usually sent to patrol various areas to prevent others from causing trouble. Ha ha ha, why can't I come sooner about Ace? Beasta laughed loudly. When he laughed, the curly beard on both sides kept shaking, and his laughter was full of heroism. He believed that his companions would be able to return safely, so what if the opponent was Marine's full combat power? This confidence comes not only from his 2 foil swords, but also from that powerful figure. Where's Dad? Drinking on the boat, Marco said, holding his forehead. As a ship's doctor, he naturally knew that his father had many old diseases, but his habit of drinking was something that was really useless despite repeated preaching. Advertisement, let him drink some. He is probably more worried about Ace than us right now. A trace of worry flashed in Beasta's eyes. He really couldn't imagine where their sons would go after this father fell. I'm afraid I don't even have a real home anymore, right? Let's not talk about this anymore. Let's quickly go to our hometown, Mobile, and wait for Dad to arrange the rest. After about 2 or 3 hours, many ships began to arrive one after another, forming a huge fleet. Whitebeard then stood up, holding a long knife in his hand, which was Kong Yunki, one of the most powerful swords. The bamboo hat behind him was fluttering in the wind, and his face showed no expression, looking calm and calm. Young men, Whitebeard said with authority. The canvas also fluttered in response at this time, and a shadow covered his body, making it impossible to see what his expression was. I summoned you here for one purpose, to rescue Ace. Oh, save Captain Ace. Just a concise speech can arouse the support of everyone. This is the credibility and dignity of being the captain of the Whitebeard pirates. Each squadron listens to the order and adjusts for one day. We will start heading to Marineland tomorrow, Whitebeard immediately ordered. Time waits for no one, and I am afraid that something will happen on the way, so I have to leave in advance. As Whitebeard urgently gathered troops, Swain also conducted military exercises with drums and gongs. What do you think this Swain is doing? Hush, are you going to die, buddy? It's taboo to mention this name. What? So strict? I thought joining the 4 emperors would be more relaxed. These 2 are the 2 pirates gathered here. Otherwise, thinking about the name of 4 emperors, burning, killing, looting, etc., in the past, you could. The latter scratched his head in embarrassment. He was still a little embarrassed to have his purpose exposed. He didn't expect this statement. But he didn't want to leave either, because the rewards given by Swain are so generous. Gold is like mud. As long as you have merit, you can get an income that can last for decades. After ordinary pirates have such a large income, they are fascinated. There happens to be Golden City next to Beehive Island. The gaming industry here is the most complete. There is nothing you can't imagine, and there is nothing you can't play. So the soldier leader who got the money began to squander it wantonly and gamble blindly. 9 out of 10 bets lead to losing. It is conceivable that one night one can instantly become a lucky man. Then he began to work hard to earn merit and gain wealth. In the end, he paid off his debt and lost it all. Anyway, everyone thought that with Swain's credit guarantee, coupled with gambling addiction, they fell into an infinite loop. This method was created by Swain alone, and there was nothing he could do about it. These pirates are not good men, so they have to use this method to control them and become their own help. Chapter 125. Four Forces. Advertisement time passed quickly, and the day of execution had come the day before. On the 5th floor of Impel City. Card. Lieutenant General Garp. You can't go in without an order. A strangely dressed man guard shouted. Many of the people here were sent in by me. Why do we need so many orders? Garp pushed the guard away and walked straight to the innermost part of the prison. In a dirty and damp room, Ace's hands were handcuffed to iron chains, and there were shriveled blood scabs on his chest, looking extremely miserable. At this time, the iron door was opened, and a strong figure stood in front of him. He raised his head slightly. Old man. The voice sounded very weak. Garp said expressionlessly, I was so seriously injured, but I'm still alive to this day. Thanks to you, Marine Headquarters. No, the world conquest is in a mess. Ha 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 ha. Those old guys must have become very anxious. He started laughing instead. But the weakness in laughter cannot be concealed. Kill me quickly, Ace begged. Garp looked solemn. No matter what you do now, it's useless. Even if you die now, Whitebeard will not give up. No one can stop this. We have P***D off the Great Poseidon. Ace's heart sank after hearing this. Yes, how could he not understand his father, and how could it be impossible for him to save him? When he thought about this war, many brothers would die for him, and even, he would lose relatives. His heart began to ache. No one can stop it, it's all my fault. His tears were already falling. It's all because I'm too weak. That's why Dad and the others risked their lives to save me. Ha 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 ha. I didn't expect a brat like you to shed tears. I wanted you and that brat Luffy to become outstanding Marines. Now forget about Marine, both brothers have become the bad guys. Have you heard about Luffy's deeds now? He openly declared war on world conquest in the Water City, and also captured Judiciary Island and defeated Rob Lucci. Some people actually say that he is inheriting the growth path of 4 Emperors Swain. Inherit Swain? No, Luffy has his own ideas, he is the freest, Ace retorted in a low voice. Advertisement. No one knows his stupid brother better than him. I personally went there to let him taste the iron fist of love, but after that, he still didn't seem to repent. As expected of my grandson, he looks a lot like me, ha 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 ha. I also told him who his father was, and he was really shocked to know that he actually had a father. Garp was like an old man chatting about family matters. When Ace heard the word, Dad, his voice sounded disdainful. That kind of thing, whether you know it or not, is a troublesome thing. Like Luffy, I have inherited the blood of a world-famous criminal, how can first become a Marine? But even though I inherited the name, Portgas, from my mother who was very kind to me, I feel embarrassed that my B***** D father is half-blood. Because he didn't bring me any memory or kindness at all. What he said is true, but he is also. Garp was interrupted by Ace mid-sentence. So I only have one dad, and that's Whitebeard. He raised his head again and looked at Garp firmly. Garp also stared at him, then stood up and turned around to leave. Although doing such a thing would not help, he still chose to meet this B***** D. By the way, if you can meet Dayton, tell me this. She is a good person. The next day. When the first ray of sunlight shines on the earth, it represents the arrival of light. Along with this ray of sunshine, there are many kings on the sea. 4 emperors. Whitebeard's fleet has been prepared at the bottom of the sea, and their appearance will appear in an unexpected way. The 4 emperors' red-haired pirate group also just set off from his leader and headed for Marine's headquarters, Marinefondo. 4 emperors. Swain led nearly 100,000 elite troops and also set out from the bottom of the sea through coding, but he was half a day later than Whitebeard. In fact, Swain's spy organization has already penetrated into behemoths like Whitebeard. You will know what time he set off. But it was only half a day wrong. The purpose was to let Marine and the world government focus all their attention on Whitebeard so that he could sneak attack Mary Joa. Before he left, he specially held a swearing-in meeting. He let his men inflict a wave of hatred on Pilgrim. According to his words, do princes and generals like Xiang Ning have the guts? They are determined to resist the injustice of this world. But the effect could be said to be minimal, so he had no choice but to take out the bounty. If you kill a celestial dragon, you can get 1 billion reward coupons, the authorized interpreter, Golden City Swain. They don't care who the licensor belongs to, but these 1 billion can be used for fun in the casino for a month. Nipple fun is also fun, and living in the present is the last word. As for the Marine headquarters, you have already made a foolproof plan and prepared the iron and steel walls. You are just waiting for Whitebeard to come and catch the turtle in the urn. Chapter 126. The war begins. Advertisement. Swain watched this scene with a headache. He had been traveling for 3 days, but before he started fighting with the enemy, internal fighting began on his side. The cause was that during a meal, the leaders of the two phalanxes didn't look at each other, so they called on their men to fight, causing 10 deaths and 3 injuries. The impact of this incident was quite large. The senior leaders of the Swain pirates didn't pay much attention at first, but later they actually started to fire on ships that they had long disliked, directly causing the death of thousands of people. After Swain found out about this, he was so angry that he secretly cursed that these were really ruffians and it was really difficult to really restrain them, no matter how much reward he gave. A country is easy to change, but a person's nature is hard to change. It really made him feel it. Knowing that the matter had to be dealt with as soon as possible, he ordered that all the soldiers involved in the brawl were imprisoned on a ship, and the first offender who caused the brawl was used as cannon fodder in the war, and a death squad was formed to make them guilty in meritorious service. Since there is no place to use your strength, then hurry up and do something serious for me. Whitebeard is only half a day away from Malinfondo. A voice came from the phone bug. This is the undercover agent assigned by Swain to the Whitebeard pirates, in order to report all the journey. The battlefield situation was changing rapidly, which was why he had to arrange spies. If he attacked Marijoy earlier, it would only make Marine and the world government wary in advance, and he would suffer heavy losses. At that time, it would probably only be an advantage for Whitebeard. Only by timing it just right can the Tianlong people be severely damaged. After hearing the news, Swain pondered for a moment and asked, "Are the revolutionary troops willing to dispatch?" "No, I can't contact them now," Norton couldn't help but said angrily. "They are all cowards. Once they encounter real things, they choose to hide." Swain burst out laughing. He also understood the difficulties faced by the revolutionary army. Not sending troops was the true way to see the country. Sit on the mountain and watch the tiger fight. If Swain were a dragon, he would also choose to delay and not send troops. Although the revolutionary army started early, most of his forces were scattered in various countries, instead of gathering all the forces together like Swain. Speed up. We must reach the Holy Land of Marijoya in time when Whitebeard and Marine start a war. Holy Land, Marijoya. The gods, living here all wear special clothes and a ventilation mask on their heads, trying to isolate themselves from the similarities as humans. There are many high-rise buildings in the city, and even the carpets on the ground are paved with luxurious brocade silk. This is the paradise of the celestial dragons. For ordinary people, this kind of luxury does not mean singing and dancing, but is made of their flesh and blood. A celestial dragon with a flat nose, tiny eyes, and extremely ugly appearance stood on the street. He stood still, and the ground beneath his feet followed his instructions. Left, and then right, haha, it's so fun, he danced happily. Advertisement, however, his happiness did embarrass the ants underground. Hurry up. Move to the right, didn't you eat today? If you make the master unhappy, all of you will die, some soldiers shouted underground. If he is slightly dissatisfied, he will fight frequently and will not stop until the opponent is beaten to death. When the people around saw this miserable scene, their eyes were filled with numbness. Death might be a relief for them. Kill me. Some people couldn't bear the bullying and pounced directly on the beating and scolding soldiers. The other party snorted coldly. HMPH. I don't know what is good or bad. You should feel honored to do things for God. He whipped away with his backhand, causing the latter to scream in pain. The soldier didn't care about this. He whipped 5 times in succession, beating the resisting man to pieces. He was only dying, and the light in his eyes was gradually fading. He didn't understand why the world was so dark until his death. Look, the war is about to begin. The most terrifying pirate is fighting Marine. What is that big blue firebird? It can actually repel General Kizaru. This war is broadcast to the world through video, and people here in the Sabaody Islands, which are close to the Marine headquarters, are naturally paying close attention to this war. I really didn't expect Fire Fistace to be Roger's son. He really deserves to die. As soon as these words came out, many people immediately echoed. However, there was a white-haired old man in the crowd who listened to their discussion with an ugly expression on his face. At the same time, his eyes were fixed on Ace's portrait in the screening. Is he your son? Roger. At the same time, Swain also emerged from the bottom of the sea, evading the eyes of the world government in this way, which is really unexpected. But, no one expected that someone would be so bold and choose to attack Mary Joa. Here we come. Brothers, the time has come to make great achievements. If you kill a celestial dragon, you can have fun in the Golden City for a month without any scruples. All the wealth you get is your own, Norton shouted to the soldiers of his regiment. Oh. The crowd responded to his call with shouts. This kind of situation also occurs in Blair's Corps. Luo and Yishao did not do these things. In their view, stability is the first factor. The Tianlong people who were enjoying themselves did not realize that a massacre against them was about to come. Chapter 127 Landing in the Holy Land Advertisement. Woo. Bursts of ship noises came from below Marijoya. However, this kind of sound cannot reach Marijoya, which is built at the top of the Red Earth continent. Everyone starts to enter the fighting state in an orderly manner, Claire reminded coldly. He nodded slowly towards Swain, and after making sure he was ready, he shouted loudly, "Get up." All the ships on the sea began to rise slowly following his shout. The ability of the Piao Piao fruit is very useful in aerial combat, Swain commented. After the Golden Lion was killed by Luffy, the piao piao fruit had already parasitized onto other fruits again. That's right, the reason why Claire was favored by Swain was that on the one hand he had good strength, and on the other hand he was a user with the ability of piao piao fruit. The role this fruit plays in air combat brings huge benefits. Moreover, Swain's ability is more conducive to naval battles. Fighting on the sea, no one is more advantageous than him. He also has a group of monster-like subordinates under him, and he is fully prepared for naval battles, air battles, and land battles. The Red Earth continent is very tall and majestic. It is like an extraterrestrial thing, isolating this sea. The distance was nearly several thousand meters, and it took nearly an hour to reach 3/4 of the distance. The higher you go, the higher the altitude, the greater the oxygen content required. Fortunately, the physical fitness of Swain's men is still acceptable. Otherwise, before reaching the peak, many people would have been eliminated just by the unbearable harsh environment. Swain clicked his tongue and marveled. No wonder those fat pigs all wear hoods, and they are used for ventilation, right? That's not all. Ordinary people can still survive in Mariayo. The environment there is similar to that below, but I don't know what technology is used. Luo reminded from the side. Regarding these little things, he had learned the secrets when he worked for Doflamingo. After all, it is impossible for a slave to survive from there to the bottom. Naturally, some world nobles do not dare to say anything. Except for the locals of Marijoya who come out to explain, no one usually speaks out about such things. Swain looked up with burning eyes. Who knows, I think these guys should be made aware of their status. How is the war situation over there now? Luo's eyes turned solemn and he replied. We don't know yet, only the latest report. Straw Hat Luffy came to the rescue. At the same time, the pirate crocodile, the clown Buddy and a group of criminals from Impel Down City came to the rescue. Swain couldn't help laughing. Ha ha ha, it's getting more and more interesting. Although it was expected, Luffy did not expect to cause a riot in Impel Down Prison. The 5th and 6th pirates who can come out are all the top pirates in the world, such as the pirate Red Earl who could compete with Whitebeard in the previous era, the crew member of One Piece Bullet. Pengu City was illuminated by the bright sun, and suddenly someone felt a darkness in the sky. Is this a solar eclipse? A slave exclaimed. What a solar eclipse, go to work quickly. The whip was whipped away, leaving the former in great pain. As long as he didn't dare to look up again, he would continue to work like an old scalper. In other words, they are not as good as old scalpers. They will die happily, but he does not even have the right to die. But the next sound made him even more confused, as if he had heard the most outrageous words in the world. Idiots below, you have been surrounded. Now, immediately, the men hold their heads and keep to the left, and the women hold their heads and keep to the right. This was Swain's voice, and it was also his impromptu idea. After this operation, everyone on the side was stunned. What are you doing here, brother? We are attacking the pinnacle of this world. When many Tianlong people in Pengu City heard this, they couldn't help but look sideways at the sky. Advertisement the surrounding guards also reacted and immediately began to take out their weapons and prepare for battle. Nani? What B********* D can say that? I want to kick his head like a ball. HMPH. Just kicking him is a light punishment. He must be cut into pieces. He dares to be so disrespectful to us. What a rude person. A deserted female celestial dragon shouted. There were also many celestial dragons clamoring, not afraid at all, because they knew that no matter what danger they faced, General Marine would come to the rescue. However, this time they failed. The Marine generals were busy fighting Whitebeard, so how could they spare time to protect them? But the simple-minded Tianlong people will not think about these things. It wasn't until the densely packed boats landed that they became a little commotion. How dare you really come to attack Marijoya? The last time he was on the Saboti Islands, he took the risk to kill the celestial dragons to vent his anger. This time, he led tens of thousands of elite soldiers to attack Marijoya brazenly. Swain walked in the front, smiling, and his loose casual clothes were blown by the oncoming breeze. He knows that every move he makes now may be spread to every place by news. The whole audience held their breath and concentrated, and it was so quiet that one could almost hear breathing. Idiot, are you here to die? A man said to the Tianlong with a proud look on his face. He actually raised his gun and shot directly, and the bullet passed through Swain's head without causing any damage. The sun shone on Swain, and the shadow above his head covered his eyes, making it difficult to see his expression clearly. However, Swain slowly raised his finger and tapped it gently, and white bubbles appeared around the Draco on the opposite side. Before the latter could figure out what was going on, he saw Swain grinning, looking harmless. You be asterisk. D. How dare you provoke me? Before he finished speaking, he felt a ringing in his ears and then lost consciousness. The whole place fell silent again. If it was because of shock the first time, then this time it was because of shock. I saw that the celestial dragon who provoked Swain had no head, and a red and white substance above his neck slowly flowed down his clothes. Fortunately, their clothes were very good, not stained with blood, and flowed smoothly to the ground. Ah! A scream from someone unknown broke the silence. Only then did many Tianlong people react. They didn't care about scolding at this time, only fear filled their heads. This person dares to kill God. Seeing their embarrassed appearance, Swain was still laughing, but it was indeed a ruthless laugh. Starting from me, you can get 1 billion belly for killing one person. I, Swain, will do what I say. His voice echoed in the world. Then there were shouts from the pirates behind Swain. They had never provoked anyone in their life, but they had never dared to provoke the celestial dragons. Now not only are they provoked but also killed, and the slightly thin boss in front of him is also behind them. What are you afraid of? FK him to death. The first person to respond was Swain's Iron Man, East King Admiral Norton. He slashed out with his sword and directly beheaded the two fleeing Dracos. It's really exciting. Nan Wong Claire licked her lips cruelly. Sure enough, he was following the right person. With a slight movement of his mind, the ground began to change, and a stone python tore the fleeing Tianlong in half with one bite. Seeing this bloody scene, everyone started to raise their butcher knives as if they had been given blood. The massacre has begun. Chapter 128 The Knights of God. Advertisement. When the Tianlong people on the opposite side really saw someone daring to take action, their momentum instantly withered. Because there were so many of the latter, the densely packed heads were moving, and it looked like the scalp was numb. Go find the Knights of God, someone shouted in the crowd. Run. You loser, you have been raising me for so long. Why don't you save me some energy now? A relatively young-looking celestial dragon was riding on the slave, trying to get him to crawl faster. Seeing that the pirates behind him were about to kill him, he jumped down quickly without caring about his identity and started running staggeringly, but his mount grabbed his ankle. You son of a b*ch. He yelled angrily. He kicked hard with his other foot, trying to escape from his grasp. Just go and die. The slave also showed a satisfied smile at this time. Because he saw that the god, Shang, who was once aloof, could look like this in embarrassment. The Tianlong man's pupils gradually dilated, his eyes full of fear. Lousy is a Tianlong man. What are you untouchables going to do? We got 1 billion. A pirate cut off his head without any hesitation. Picking up the bloody head on the ground, he frowned and said disdainfully, what bullshit Tianlong, Lousy is also a person who lives with his head hanging on his waist, so he is still afraid of your identity? He had no father or mother and entered the sea alone. He has long been dissatisfied with the celestial dragons. In the past, even if he killed them out of passion, he would not get much benefit, and he would be hunted down by marine generals all over the world. Now is different from the past. With the protection of the 4 emperors, you don't have to worry about being hunted down, not to mention there is a 1 billion bounty. Damn it. I lost 100 million in gambling last time. This time I have to get back 1 billion with profit. He carefully stored the head in the storage bag. The heart of one person is the heart of thousands. There are not a few people who think like him, and there are not a few Tianlong people who were killed at the same time. However, there are more monks than meat, and some people even fight for a head. Don't attack your companions. I will keep a record of whoever I kill. If you dare to mess around again, I will report you truthfully and send you to a military court. Someone in the crowd wearing an iron mask shouted. Everyone gave up the fight and looked for prey in other places angrily. This person is called Soldier Supervisor. As the name suggests, it is the role of a supervisor. It is usually used to supervise whether there are any illegal behaviors among his subordinates. Now Swain uses it to record merits. This is also to prevent infighting. Advertisement. As for the military court he was talking about, it was also established by Swain to manage this group of people. Anyway, since the military court was established, no one has ever left alive. Pirates and soldiers all say that this is the Shinigami Reception Center, and once you enter, you will never come back. This also leads to the extremely high status of military courts in the hearts of these people. After all, the department that can control their own life and death, can they not pay more attention to it? But inside Pangu City, the riots outside have not yet reached here. In a private office. Report to the 5 elders, pirates have broken in. Before the man could finish speaking, he heard an sound from the other side of the phone and was killed. Huh? What's the situation? Why did pirates break in? The old man who answered the phone suddenly asked in surprise. Their attention was all attracted by the war above, and they didn't know which force the pirates attacking here belonged to. Fortunately, there was a call next, reporting to 5 elders, 4 emperors, Swain and tens of thousands of pirates are attacking Pangu City. The guards are unable to resist. Hundreds of nobles have died. Please send more manpower. Toot toot toot. The phone was hung up, and the private room suddenly fell into silence. How did Swain come to the Holy Land? Saint Satan was immediately shocked and furious. For hundreds of years, no pirates have ever attacked this place. If Swain were here, he would definitely Kaido. Hey, look, isn't it already there? Masheng, an old man with a human-shaped beard, said with uncertain eyes. This kid knows how to pick the right time. Now Marine's entire combat power is dealing with Whitebeard, and he knows that Marine can't withdraw. Nashu Langsheng raised his eyes and said, now we should think about how to drive them out. There are tens of thousands of them. I think it's better to report it to adult. The blonde old man Peter Street shook his head. Wouldn't that mean that the entire Holy Land would be destroyed? Let the Knights of God go. If it's difficult to quell the chaos, we will choose to take action. This suggestion instantly caused everyone to nod in agreement. The Knights of God is one of the most mysterious and powerful organizations in world government, composed of members of the Draco. They maintain the dignity and power of the royal family, and their main responsibility is to protect the safety of the celestial dragons and maintain their dominance. The members of the Knights of God are all celestial dragons, and they are senior guards affiliated with the celestial dragons, but only the 5 elders and IM can dispatch them. Chapter 129 Take Action. Advertisement. The 5 most powerful people in the world took their time. All the celestial dragons down there were howling like ghosts and wolves. This was their darkest day. Some people were hacking and killing them like cucumbers. The scene was chaotic. There are also capable people among the celestial dragons who organized some powerful slaves to serve as escorts to form a counterattack against the pirates. Damn it, why are these nobles getting harder and harder to kill? Did you see that old man with yellow hair? That man is resisting in an organized way. We need to kill him, the two platoon leaders were discussing in low voices. Swain's pirate regiment has teams, platoons, companies, and various mid-level leading cadres, which can maximize the combat effectiveness of the army. I'll attract his attention from the front, and you sneak up on him from behind. We'll split the 1 billion bounty in half. One of them quickly gave instructions. Then, the two of them had a tacit understanding and fought head-on with a tall slave. But unexpectedly, he was defeated in just one round and was knocked out, knocking down several houses in a row. Suddenly he felt a fishy sensation in his throat and vomited out a large mouthful of blood. Damn it, you have to be a dog to these scumbags with such great strength. Gradually he felt dissatisfied in his heart, thinking that it would be better to die than to be a dog to the celestial dragons. Obviously, he also had deep prejudice against the celestial dragons. For the people at the bottom, it is almost to the point where everyone is shouting and beating them, but due to their status and strength, they are not allowed to have any ideas. Now that there are signs of resistance, these slaves are still guarding their masters. It's really not a pity to die, he cursed secretly again. The tall slave has already charged forward, kill him. This was what he read in his eyes, and he saw the latter fanning his huge palm with a whoosh, and the blow solidly drove the platoon leader into the ground. Speed, power, and strength are not in the same dimension. ERIA. The platoon leader who was lurking in the rear exclaimed that he did not expect the battle to end so quickly, and killed his companions with lightning speed. Hoo-ha-ha-ha, good job. The Tianlong man couldn't help but said proudly, pinching his beard. This slave was indeed a slave that he had spent a lot of money to transform using Vegapunk's technology. It was an unintentional move, and he abused the slave in various ways, but he didn't expect that it would come in handy at the critical moment. Damn it, go to hell. The platoon leader lurking suddenly shouted violently. He raised the knife and lowered his hand, just as he was about to chop off the head of the dragon man. The slave seemed to be able to telepathize, and he appeared behind his master in a flash. I saw him crossing his chest with both hands, pushing forward suddenly, and smashing the long knife to the ground. What a strength! He was surprised inwardly. When the knife fell to the ground, there was a gap in the air, and the slave bumped forward with his shoulder. With a bang, he was knocked hundreds of meters away. Both platoon leaders were defeated. Others around noticed this battle. The corresponding strength of the platoon leader is approximately the strength of the captain of the Marine headquarters. The company commander corresponds to the strength of the major general. The leader corresponds to the strength of the lieutenant general. Advertisement: the brigade commander corresponds to the strength of the strongest lieutenant general in the headquarters, except Garp. The top one corresponds to the king level, which corresponds to the strength of Marine headquarters generals. I'm afraid it will take someone at the company commander level to deal with it. I'm afraid I'm not strong enough to deal with this slave. I vaguely remember that this man was a pirate worth 200 million bounties 5 years ago. 20 million. Everyone gasped. Most of them are pirates worth 20 to 30 million, and some don't even have bounty orders. A bounty order of 200 million can reach the level of their captain. Trash, kill these untouchables quickly. The dragon man suddenly became furious. That sneak attack just now, if this slave hadn't taken action in time, I'm afraid he would have seen his great-grandfather by now. Glancing aside casually, he saw that his companion was being beheaded by pirates, and from time to time there were still people fighting over him. He was a little scared. He didn't understand that these people fell from the sky, and he didn't care at all that they would be hunted down by General Marine. Although the slave has been transformed into a machine, its movements are indeed extremely sensitive, harvesting a wave of life wherever it passes. Everyone, please spread out. If you gather together, there will be no room to hide. Just when someone warned, dozens more people died on the spot. Go to hell, you untouchables from the lower realms, the old Tianlong man said with a ferocious smile. He is as vicious as his age, as old as he is. However, his pride did not last long, and soon a captain-level pirate noticed the chaos here. As soon as Pooh took action, he stopped the slave who was killing. The leader probably knew some inside story. He looked at this man with some pity in his eyes, and then said meaningfully, "You should have died long ago." Everyone didn't know the meaning of this sentence, so they just thought it was a victory that the overall situation had been decided. As expected, the leader only used 3 rounds to beat the slave until it was difficult to get up. The slave's owner was also held at knife point and caught in front of the group leader. However, there was still some arrogance in his eyes. They kicked his knees hard, making him kneel to speak, and at the same time smashed the fish tank on his head. Report to the leader, how to handle the request. I don't need the heads anymore, so I'll give them to you. The leader glanced lightly. After hearing this, everyone looked at each other and saw surprise in their eyes. Then, like executing an ant, the head was chopped off. There wasn't even a chance for the celestial dragons to beg for mercy. The gods who used to be aloof are now just used to exchange coupons for money. Swain and the 4 kings, admirals have not taken any action. This kind of small-time attack is a bit of a competition with his subordinates for battle glory. He has been sensing the atmosphere of this city through his experience. Here we come. Swain's breath was slightly cold. He felt an unusual aura. It must be someone from the Knights of God taking action. Chapter 130. St. Gl. An advertisement. Swish 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 swish. A group of people came out of the city, and all the pirates who stood in their way were beheaded or cut in half by the owl. He drove out the congested pirates who entered the city with murderous intent and forcibly cleared a road. St. Gl. Is finally here, otherwise we will die here today, said a female celestial dragon. There was some dissatisfaction in his tone, probably because he complained that it came too late. 13 knights with similar body shapes formed a sharp knife shape, and the leading knight's momentum was breathtaking. You mortals, leave quickly or you will die. As soon as he finished speaking, he picked up a long knife and threw it out, directly splitting the body of the nearby pirate in half. When he died, he didn't even know what happened. He only saw a flash of cold light, and his consciousness and pupils disappeared, gradually dispersed. Since the Holy Land is very large and the city does not have only one entrance, Swain's tens of thousands of pirates attacked from various entrances. But there are only a few thousand people left here. Seeing such a terrifying scene, it is inevitable to be frightened. Who is this? Someone asked tremblingly after witnessing the whole process. But there were some who didn't notice this scene, and in order to avoid chaos in the world, they shouted loudly. We are the younger brothers of 4 emperors Swain, you idiot, why don't you get out of the way? After saying that, he looked at the leading knight proudly, his eyebrows raised slightly, as if he was provoking him. You're looking for death, the knight said angrily, his eyes so cold that it seemed to freeze everything. He flashed forward as fast as lightning, and came to the side of the provocative pirate. Before the latter could react, he only felt a chill on the back of his neck, and the hair on his body suddenly stood up, and he secretly thought something bad was wrong. Just when he thought he was about to explain this, a figure appeared beside him at an extremely fast speed and grabbed the opponent's weapon with his bare hands. I can't let you hurt my subordinates like this, a middle-aged man with a Chinese character face and a beard said. This man's name is Buck Titus, and he is the brigade commander of the pirate corps. Really? Then I want it. The knight turned over and jumped up, with a rainbow of momentum. The armor he was wearing could act as a magic weapon at this time. With one kick, he kicked the opponent away, and the latter kept rolling to the ground. The impact brought by it let the grass clippings on the ground continue to fly. So strong, Titus felt a sharp pain in his heart. He could feel this kick, and his internal organs were shocked. If he hadn't been wearing a piece of gold inner armor, he might have died directly from this blow. The golden inner armor is a defensive armor created by Swain for group leaders and above. HMPH. That's all, the knight said disdainfully. I saw him leaning forward again, his palm as terrifying as a battle axe, preparing to kill Titus with one blow. Swain knew that he had to come to the rescue. After all, it was the Knights of God, and other than the 4 kings, it was really hard to resist them. Advertisement. The reason why there was no fight was just because he wanted to observe what his strength was. Now he has it clear in his mind that he has some strength, but not a lot. The armor is quite interesting. Can it block my vision? Swain said with some interest. He appeared in front of the knight at a faster speed, with the strength of 1,000 pounds lifted on his legs, and at the same time, he carried the destructive conqueror's domineering aura. This is, the knight said in fear. He didn't expect that there was someone here, and his speed was much faster than his. He immediately covered his abdomen with the weapon color, thinking that although he was very fast, his power would definitely be difficult to hurt me. But he ignored the other party, the famous 4 emperors. After receiving a complete whip kick, his abdomen was cracked even though he was protected by armor. The flying figure was like a meteor, destroying the magnificent building behind him. One hit kill. A moment later, Swain suddenly burst into cheers. The seemingly invincible opponent, even the brigade commander, was defeated by his strength, but Swain killed one of them with a casual move. On the other hand, when the Tianlong people saw this scene, their faces turned pale and they were despairing. Even the Knights of God are no match, let alone ordinary people like them. The frightened celestial dragon couldn't help but tremble in his legs. After meeting Swain's murderous gaze, he peed all over himself. Ha ha ha. Look at that, he peed his pants. Which one? Sure enough, I was so scared that I peed. This kind of thing deserves to be called the most noble God. It's ridiculous that we untouchables are so scared that we wet our pants. The originally serious scene turned out to be a bit funny due to the laughter. Although the Knights of God killed one person in an instant, they did not break the will of others, but instead became more and more willing to fight. Another person was about to step forward to fight Swain, but was stopped by an old man with red hair. They looked at each other, as if asking him why he wanted to stop him, but the red-haired old man didn't answer, and shook his head to express no. Then, his eyes were as sharp as an eagle's, staring at Swain. His face was solemn as never before, because he felt the aura of an acquaintance from Swain's body. Can you give me some face? Chapter 131. Crazy advertisement. Jiao Sheng was filled with doubts. His face remained calm, but the movements of his hands could not hide his solemnity. Touching the sword on his waist, he felt a little comfort in his heart. This was a famous Western sword. He had followed him in battles since he was a boy. Over the decades, there were countless dead souls under the sword. The cold light on this sword has been imprinted with the blood of no matter the emperor, nobility or maritime overlord. Can you please give me some face and retreat? Jiao Sheng wore a pair of glasses, making it difficult to see his happiness and anger. The other members of the knights around looked at this respected old man with puzzled expressions. Although time has destroyed his compatibility, it has not been able to lower his status and prestige. Are there no younger people in the Holy Land? Let you, an old man, come forward to solve the problem. Swain seemed to be fighting for the injustice of St. Garen. St. Gielen chuckled, which made people feel as if they were breathing a breeze. The younger generation does not have monsters like you, who can defeat strong men like Aokiji and Kaido in just a few years. But those of us from the old times shouldn't come out. As for not hitting the smiling person, Swain also replied kindly, since the trouble has reached this level, I have committed a heinous crime. The two looked at each other closely, as if there was no one else in this place, and chatting here was like a year-end friendship. However, everyone remained silent, because this is a conversation between two kings. One side represents the four emperors, and the other side represents the supreme judge captain in the world. No matter how they talk, others can feel tit for tat. My little friend likes to joke, if you retreat now, you will naturally cause less injustice. Swain smiled and understood that St. Gielen was stalling for time. Someone was already notifying Marine headquarters. From the perspective of the world government, the five elders must not show up easily, not to mention that if it causes a scandal this time, the Revolutionary Army will make a fuss about it. By then, there will definitely be more and more countries rebelling, and there will be grassland fires, trend. The more they tried to suppress it, the more Swain wanted to reveal the ugliest side of the world. You think it's these people? Swain said in a rather disdainful tone. His fingers circled the group of timid celestial dragons behind St. Gielen. Watch your words. You are just a pariah. How can you dare to accuse us? Why don't you apologize in front of me right away? Although St. Gielen tried his best to appease Swain, there were always some Draco clowns who overestimated their abilities and jumped out to make noises. Gielen Sheng turned around suddenly following the voice, and there was a chill in his eyes that made the other party shrink back timidly. But when he thought that this was to protect himself, he immediately puffed up his chest arrogantly. His father had said not to look down upon the untouchables anywhere, otherwise he would lose the nobility of the celestial dragons. But this time, his father would have been killed by a knife, otherwise he would have been given a big mouth to make him understand whose hands his life was now. Everyone in the corps did not dare to look back, because they already felt a terrifying aura coming down from the top of their heads, making them unable to breathe. Advertisement: 4 emperors are angry. Suddenly, a terrifying and domineering aura rushed towards his face, surging like a tidal wave. This domineering force was as solid as a real thing, and it actually pressed directly against the arrogant and domineering Tianlong man. How can this boy be so proficient in domineering? St. Gielen secretly said in shock. Although he was also angry, how could his own race be so useless? After hundreds of years of enjoyment, they could not even distinguish this simple situation of strength and weakness. But, for the sake of the face and majesty of the Tianlong people, he must also protect this idiot. A terrifying conqueror's domineering force also formed behind him, although it was not as solid and terrifying as Swain's. Swain was not actually very angry in his heart, mainly because in his previous life, he would not kill people just because of verbal disputes. In today's world where strength is respected, a battle of words is a battle of life and death. What's more, as a 4 emperors, if he gives in under such circumstances, he will inevitably fall into the excuse of, 4 emperors are afraid of the celestial dragons. That would be too much, it lowers the tone of 4 emperors. In an instant, 2 powerful domineering forces met. The sky has changed. Someone shouted in surprise at this time. The sky that was originally clear after the two of them fought turned dark at this time. Both of them are domineering top players, but the overflowing conquerors still makes many people faint. Ssssssssssssss. The momentum of the two people grew stronger and stronger, and lightning as thick as a finger wandered between them. The originally pristine ground was also fractured in all directions at this time, and it continued to extend as if an earthquake was occurring. Kid, you are indeed that person's descendant. I should have killed you long ago, Gielen Sheng said in a ferocious voice, no longer the gentle and elegant look he had just now. Hearing this, Swain mocked, then I still have to thank you for not killing me? The purpose of coming here today is to let everyone know that you Tianlong people are nothing more than this, are princes and generals like Shangning? Swain said word by word, and his voice echoed between heaven and earth, like a Buddhist bell, ringing in people's hearts. He believes that Morgans will publicize this incident, even more shocking than the war. His words will definitely let the world know that this world is no longer world government. Swain finally exposed his ambition, and his heart was full of madness. Come on, let this world go completely crazy. Everyone can compete, everyone can rule the roost, why should the Tianlong people enjoy this overwhelming wealth? On the frontal battlefield, Sengoku strategized and watched the battle below. Fortunately, it was all within his plan. Not long after, a soldier said a few words in his ear, and his expression suddenly changed dramatically, as if he had heard something out of the blue. Chapter 132, Fight. Advertisement: the frontal battlefield was in full swing. Marine and the Whitebeard pirates were evenly matched, and it was not yet clear which one was stronger. At this time, the battle changed again. Marco saw that the general and his Shichibukai opponent were entangled with him. His hands turned into blue flame wings again, like a blue comet, and he rushed towards the execution platform. I couldn't help but feel a little relieved in my heart. Let's end this war as soon as possible. Ace, you will go home safely. The speed increased again, and just when everyone thought Marco was about to succeed, suddenly, a strong figure stood in front of him, knocked him away with an iron fist, and rolled to the ground in embarrassment. Old man. Although Ace understood in his heart, he still murmured unwillingly. It's Lieutenant General Garp, as expected of our Marine hero. With Lieutenant General Garp here, this war will definitely be won. The Marine soldiers cheered, which was more inspiring than promising them credit. Garp struck very hard and quickly, not giving Marco any chance at all. The momentum of the pirates was also a bit weaker. But Whitebeard quickly counterattacked. He punched the air in front of him arrogantly, and only heard a few sounds of broken mirrors. Everyone in Marine was frightened, because no one knew that their feet would turn into ruins, will unfortunately become a victim. Sure enough, the ground on the upper right side of Whitebeard began to crack. Faced with the natural disaster-like ability, the enemies had no time to react, and they turned into flesh and blood, staining the ground red. Although he is old, his strength has not declined much, and time cannot cover up his heroic appearance. He kept silent, his face was quite serious, he was not angry, and his partial vision was excellent. Looking at the panicked expression of Warring States on the execution platform, doubts arose in his heart. What could make Warring States panic like this? Execution platform. Warring States quickly stopped panicking. As the commander of the First Army, it is most taboo to be upset, and he slowly calmed down. Crane was not with him, so he could only discuss it with Garp. Despite Garp's usual arrogant appearance, he is still very reliable when it comes to matters of right and wrong. Garp looked at Daihatsu Kamui's Whitebeard, sighed, and in a blink of an eye saw Sengoku walking over with a gloomy face. What's wrong? Warring States first spat. What a troubled time, the Holy Land was attacked. Garp was stunned for a moment after hearing this, and said, what can I do? I can't control my stubborn son. He acted very helpless. Apparently, he thought that the Revolutionary Army took advantage of Marine's inability to make a move and attacked Marijoya. But Warring States shook his head. It's not the Revolutionary Army. Advertisement. Who could it be? It can't be that daring Swain. After saying that, he burst into laughter. But the laughter gradually stopped, because he was looking at Warring States and nodded solemnly. Garp really couldn't understand why Swain, as one of the 4 emperors of the New World, would travel so far to attack Marijoya. The fact that it was chosen at this time can only be said that it is definitely not a coincidence, but a deliberate plan by the other party. We must not spare our troops to assist Marijoya now, Garp reminded Sengoku in a deep voice. He was afraid that the 5 elders had already given orders to Warring States, and he knew the character of his old friend very well. Well, I know. At least we have to get through this difficult time. Why bother with those idiots? Sengoku nodded in agreement. If the war with Whitebeard failed, Marine's face would suffer a devastating blow. By then, pirates will be the main force in this world. Marijoya. Swain's aura was like a rainbow, and after shouting loudly, he climbed up again, completely suppressing the domineering power of St. Gielin. Although he had the upper hand for the time being, Swain still did not let down his guard. The man in front of him was a strong man who had participated in the Valley of Gods battle. Who knew whether he might be a trick for the other party? He made a calculation in his mind, and the lion fought the rabbit with all his strength, so he directly used the awakening form. Everyone, please step back 1,000 meters, Swain ordered. Although his hair turned blue and his appearance became more handsome, the pirate corps could still recognize that this was Boss Swain. The cold seals thousands of miles. A blue cold current emerged from behind Swain. Even though he was thousands of meters away, someone felt trembling all over as soon as Swain finished speaking. Just the overflowing cold air can freeze the air. Birds flying in the sky suddenly stiffen and fall to the ground. Just like the cold winter coming, a word or a move can almost change the natural climate. Jiel Sheng knew that the other party was serious and used all his strength. I saw him slowly pulling out the western sword, and suddenly his whole body seemed to be electrified. Black arcs of electricity wrapped around the hilt of the sword, and a terrifying aura erupted. Breaking the military, like a voice from ancient times. The sword was sheathed at the end, with an incomparable domineering look, like a bite. The beast of man pounced upon the cold current. Chapter 133 5 Elders dispatched. Advertisement. The movement between the two was extremely violent, as if the whole world was about to be turned upside down. Some Tianlong people didn't pay much attention, and a scene of bleeding from the 6 orifices appeared in an instant, making others shudder after seeing it. It's really a fight between gods and mortals. In the face of absolute strength, the celestial dragons would fall apart in no time, and their physical fitness would be vulnerable to a single blow. The chill exuded by Swain makes people feel it, and the next moment it turns into a lifelike ice sculpture. However, this chill could not penetrate even a little bit. The conqueror's domineering spirit was thick and integrated, and there was no flaw at all. Seeing that this move could not cause any harm, Swain retracted his palm and shrank the biting coldness in his palm, condensing it into a blue round ice cube. His figure changes rapidly, at an extremely fast speed, making it difficult to tell where his real body is. Although Jiel Sheng is old, his acuity is still the same as before. He suddenly stared at a figure in his eyes, raised a knife in his hand, and struck several beautiful red slashes in one direction at the same time. The nose's sense of smell is quite sensitive, but it's a pity that you found it wrong. Swain snorted coldly, ignoring another slash from the front. His awakening ability can change between his true body and his false body in any direction. Transforming cold hands. His true form changed again, making people feel dazzled like magic. Jialansheng's heart trembled. Is it wrong again? Facing Swain's flexible attack, his knowledge seemed to deceive him. Whenever he felt that he was going to hurt the opponent, the outcome would always give him an unexpected result, which he found hard to believe. This was also a temporary change in Swain's battle strategy. He had guessed a long time ago that the red-haired four emperors were probably members of the Farrander family. When he saw Saint Jialan, he felt that strange domineering. The only outstanding thing about the red-haired four emperors is that he is very domineering. His knowledge can prevent others from predicting his actions. As another pair of eyes, it can be said that without it, you are equivalent to fighting the enemy with your eyes closed. Naturally, Saint Jialan can also block the enemy's prediction of himself, and this is also, I predicted your prediction. If the enemy fails every time, he will have doubts, and then he will mess up his position. If he attacks again, it will be a flaw. All kinds of things. Jialansheng's playing style that had been tried and tested in the past was seen through by a young man today. He suddenly felt bad in his heart and made up his mind to take this opportunity to get rid of Swain completely. Jialansheng said with emotion, "There are so many talents in this era. At this moment, my heart moved. Young man, I can protect your identity as a celestial dragon, as long as you serve us." Even though he knew it was impossible, he still wanted to recruit Swain just because he was too young. Advertisement, he was so young that he felt jealous. After saying this sentence, the Tianlong people behind them couldn't help but jump. They were not in the battlefield and were too weak to make decisions for Jialansheng. Or maybe they felt that the old man guarding them in front of them had something wrong with his brain. How could they invite someone with whom they have a deep hatred to be their compatriot? And the untouchables are not worthy to be in the company of God. The pirates of Swain's regiment couldn't help but breathe after hearing such an invitation. They were worried that Swain would really agree. After all, if it were them, they would not be able to help but agree that although everyone hates the celestial dragons, no ordinary person would want to become a celestial dragon. This is a big class leap. Of course, these are the thoughts of young people. Of course, there are also pirates in their prime. They think that no celestial dragon can be free and easy as the Emperor of the Sea. Swain indeed smiled disdainfully. What kind of heavenly dragon identity you are? You are worse than a dog in front of me. Although he loves luxury, he does not want to base his happiness on the flesh and blood of the lower class. Saint Jialan was not surprised at all by his rejection. These rising stars in the great pirate era were unruly and pretentious. Especially a strong young man like Swain, since you can't collude with it. Then you can eliminate one and count them one by one. There was also a little pity in Swain's eyes, as if to say that it would be a great good thing if he appeared in their camp. Unfortunately, it will never be possible. Swain naturally noticed the look in his eyes, and couldn't help but feel funny in his heart. Can the dragon people really be arrogant? Seeing the fat and big-eared appearance of the Tianlong people, I felt even more disgusting. This time I must capture a few more Tianlong people and go back to me to learn how to mine. At the same time, it's time for 5 elders to take action. Because the 4 admirals attacked Pangu City from 4 directions. Since this city was built, I never thought that it would be attacked one day. What's more, the strong men in the city have been transferred to the main gate, and the 4 admirals are all as powerful as the generals. Under their leadership, next, it is even more powerful. In desperation, the 5 elders still asked the big boss behind it, Mr. I Am. After getting approval, we sent aid to 5 places respectively. Chapter 134 Domain Advertisement, 4 Square Formation. Clang, clank, clang, clang. Circles of way shapes formed around Saint Jialan, like a maze, encompassing him. It's just a little trick, Jialansheng snorted coldly. Looking at the dark wall, his expression darkened. A random slash of the sword can make the sound of metal colliding. Sure enough, this is more like a sea tower stone? The sword pointed at the wall, and the conquerors in his hand flowed towards the sword like water, broken army. Stab. A harsh sound. The wall was split into 2 completely symmetrical halves, and this sword required the use of domineering force to cut through it. Because this wall as hard as sea stone is made of seawater. In other words, it is caused by Swain's fruit ability, and only domineering can restrain it. However, I don't know how long it will take to cut down these layers of walls. There is a time when the domineering energy is exhausted. After thinking about this clearly, Saint Jialan became more and more horrified by Swain's methods. This kid's strength is even more terrifying than the investigation revealed. Isn't defeating Kaido all he has? Even though the climate in the Holy Land was very warm, cold sweat began to break out on his back. So with such great strength, why did you choose to risk the disapproval of the world to attack the Holy Land? What is his purpose? A series of questions popped up one after another in his mind. Thinking of the disdainful look on Swain's face when he first invited him, there was no hesitation at all. Suddenly, he had a bold guess. Could it be? His pupils suddenly dilated, and he felt an attack that could threaten his life. The aura that he had never felt before seemed to appear out of thin air. He suddenly jumped in the opposite direction and had to throw the famous sword in his hand to resist. At the same time, he immediately used his sense of sight to explore every corner of the encirclement, trying to find the dangerous atmosphere just now. Did you fail? This old guy really has some strength. Swain sighed regretfully. I just saw that the other party was distracted, and I thought that using a sneak attack would be the fastest way to get rid of this trouble, but the other party discovered it. He simply stopped attacking. directly attacking with swords and spears. Hundreds of tridents as hard as sea stones were shot at St. Gielen from different angles. It can even emerge from the ground, and it is a completely blind attack. This makes it difficult for the other party to resist. Swain would also use Guteru's second generation to hit him with a few swords from time to time, but the opponent could only take it hard. There was a smear of blood hanging from the tiger's mouth, looking quite embarrassed. Advertisement. Swain walked out of the wall, still with a smile on his face. I'm a polite person here. You invited me before, and now I want to invite you to join my pirate corps. How about that? 5 insurances and 1 housing fund are provided, as well as a year-end bonus. He understood the first half of the words, but the second half was confused, but this could not stop his anger. As the leader of the Knights of God, he had always been the only one to humiliate others, but now someone with a low status came to humiliate him. How could he not be angry? You have successfully angered me, Jielen Sheng said angrily. Seeing the other party's glaring look, Swain secretly exclaimed, this old man has quite a bad temper. Oh, so what, you're asking for death? He flashed, his speed was much faster than before, and the sword in his hand became even sharper under his anger. A sword sealed his throat, and Swain's head was cut off directly and rolled to the ground. But not a drop of blood was shed, and this corpse looked like a wooden stake puppet. Old man, where are you going to chop? Swain's voice came from behind him, above his head, from the right, different places. It makes people's scalp numb when they hear it. In this maze-like place, it is like a ghost calling for life, lingering. Jielen Sheng was a little crazy. He felt that since the other party tested him, the subsequent battle was like a cat playing with a mouse. He shouted loudly, get out! At the same time, the sword light split all the surrounding walls, revealing another layer of wall. It's not that Jielen Sheng's knowledge, perception, and color were different, but that his perception, knowledge, and color were disturbed in the square formation. Swain cleverly combines fruit abilities with 3-color domineering energy, which he calls field. This is Swain's own understanding. It is the first time it appears in the pirate world, and it will feel like it is unprepared. However, it is extremely difficult to learn this field. The first is to awaken the fruit. This is only the first step. The second step is to learn the 3-color Haki. Among them, Conqueror's Entanglement must be learned. These 2 conditions can eliminate 100%, 99 people. There may be people who can master one or the other, but there are very few who master both like Swain. Maybe Wang Lufei will have it later, but the last condition is the Logia fruit. Therefore, this field belongs to the only existence other than domineering and fruits. Even superior to both. The field is like a room, aloft in the sky. Swain can also add other things to it. You can live in it and kill people in it. Just like Swain can change it into different killing moves against Garen Saint. It can be understood that when faced with this kind of fighting method, Jielen Sheng would be caught off guard and even feel vulnerable. In fact, if the two of them compete, they may be able to crack Swain's field. But, the enemy of life and death, Swain will not leave any leeway just because the opponent is an old man. It's time to harvest. Chapter 135 Meteor Advertisement. It's time to harvest, Swain said calmly. He had much less respect for this once strong man. No matter where you are, water flows to lower places and people go to higher places. It is human nature to worship the strong. Swain's gesture changed slightly, and the original, shaped maze changed again, becoming a high mountain with a peak. Jielen Sheng's face was gloomy. It was difficult for him to feel the changes in the terrain in the maze. Still using his sense of sight, which was infinitely weakened by the field, he noticed that the corner of the wall a few meters away was slightly deformed. The more this happens, the more he needs to calm down. After calming down the ups and downs of emotions a little, I carefully recalled Swain's various methods. Suddenly, an idea flashed in his mind. Could it be that time? Yes, he has been setting a trap for me, Jielen Sheng asked himself. The image of Swain determined to hunt down that tribesman appeared in his mind. From then on, Swain began to change the entire venue for the fight, using seawater to penetrate into the ground step by step. No, there should be seawater underground. He couldn't help but feel horrified when he thought of this, which meant that Swain could kill all the Dracos present if he wanted to. And he didn't do that. Why? Waiting for him, Jielen Sheng, to take action. Combined with what he knew about the ocean fruits, in the awakened state, any place containing water can be controlled. Just like the ground, there is seawater underground. He can use the seawater to tighten the soil and change the terrain. The most terrifying thing is this, which is why the world government has always wanted to recycle it. Human blood can also be controlled, because the most inorganic substance in the human body is water. At that time, as long as he had a thought, he could make ordinary people explode and die. Of course, he was not invincible, and his domineering energy could be used to stop him. But how many people can be domineering? The ocean gives life and can also take away life. Return everything to its origin. It is truly a well-deserved, devil, fruit. But the only good news now is that Swain has not fully mastered the ability to awaken. Outside the maze, Swain's movements stopped completely. The peak-like hilltop has also been formed. Swain smiled slightly and said, I just want to try my new move to see if I can chip off this hilltop. This huge change surprised others. Although this kind of ability to change the terrain is not common, it is also a new insight for many people. Some people even shouted that Swain was the true god, and the next moment they were greeted by the platoon leader's shock. Keep your voice down. If I'm reported, my salary will be deducted. Yes. The Swain Pirate Corps does not engage in feudal superstition. Jung. An unparalleled sound of swords echoed between heaven and earth. Advertisement. Everyone suddenly felt as if there was a sharp sword hanging over their heads. It seemed like a king was overlooking them, and they couldn't help but feel like they were kneeling down. When they looked up with difficulty, a huge black sword was behind Swain. After the giant sword appeared in the sky, dark clouds pressed down on the city, and an aura of impatience and panic dispersed. What kind of name should I choose? Swain suddenly asked. While he was thinking, St. Garen on the other side of the peak looked towards Swain. After a lot of effort, he finally opened up Swain's territory. As soon as he regained his sight, he saw a scene that made his liver and gallbladder split. Damn it. I was tricked by this brat. Even though he was calm, he began to panic at this time. Under the giant sword, he could feel the aura of destroying everything. Not weaker than any danger he had faced before, even worse. Then let me try. Can the leader of the new era cut off my sharp sword of the old era? St. Gielen was no longer panicking at this time. There was solemnity and madness in his eyes. He has disappeared since the battle in the Valley of Gods, and that period of hidden history will never make him famous. This battle. He needs to heal the regret in his heart. The regret is more corrosive to his heart than the namelessness. Swain also noticed the fighting intent in St. Gielen's burning eyes. Put away your comfort and respect your opponents. At this moment, two words came to his mind: meteor. The sword rises with the sound, killing the enemy thousands of miles away. Jielen Sheng's domineering energy burst out at this time, and he used 10% of his strength to produce 12% of it. A shadow gradually appeared behind him. It was his young self. Throughout his military life, he devoted his youth to the divine power of the Tianlong people. He also became the leader of the knights, inferior to one person and superior to 10,000 people. Cao Dao's fighting spirit cannot conceal his unparalleled achievements. I heard him shout loudly, seeming to shout out all this. IWC, he once carried a Western sword and killed all the enemies in the world. This, all nations, sounds like the nations he suppressed for the world government. When the giant sword collided with the giant slash, only a clang was heard. The world was instantly covered by white light, and the blast of air caused the surrounding area to be flattened for thousands of meters. If you are not careful, just by not avoiding the remaining waves, your body will turn into powder and become the nourishment of heaven and earth. After I felt this aura deep in the Holy Land, a different kind of emotion appeared under the silent mask. Chapter 136 Kill. Advertisement. When the dazzling white light dissipated, the sky returned to blue. Both forces looked up, wanting to know the outcome. If the celestial dragons win, very few of the tens of thousands of pirates in the Swain Corps will be able to return alive. If Swain wins, the lives of these celestial dragons will still be guaranteed by Marine, but they can survive. There is still a big difference between nobles and ordinary people. What's more, this is still known as the God Clan. The Revolutionary Army did not choose to participate in this battle, and the Swain Pirate Corps was alone in the battle. If Jielen Sheng really wins, the Tianlong people will not feel pity because of their larger number. Anyone who dares to touch their divine power will be directly killed, which is a blessing. It would be a kind of torture to become their slave. There are many people with good eyesight in the Pirate Corps. Their eyes flicker and dim until they see something. It's King Ming. King Ming wins. Following this shout, everyone began to shout. Victory falls on their side. When they went on the expedition, they did not know that they were fighting against the celestial dragons. If he knew about it, he would probably quit directly, or even mutiny because of it. In the eyes of the world, the celestial dragon has always been a symbol of power, life and death. Gods can kill people without being bound by the law or punished. If you fight back, a marine general will even take action and kill you. Tolerance and acceptance have been implanted in their minds by the world government, turning them into insensitive, untouchables. The shouts grew louder and louder until they resounded through the sky and rushed towards the blue sea and sky that yearned for freedom. Swain is like an outlier in this world. He dares what others don't dare. He does what others don't do. His figure gradually emerged, looking at the boiling crowd below and smiling slightly. He understood that from now on, these people would become the guarantee of strength to reach the top of the world. The celestial dragons also dared to kill, so what else can they not dare to do? Sometimes it's not that people are willing to accept oppression, but that they lack a hero who is unconventional and dares to break everything to lead them. Maybe the name used to be Dragon, Luffy, but now, there is only one name engraved in the hearts of people who dare to resist: Swain. Carrying the incomparable heroism of victory, he shouted loudly, "In my name, swim across this sea." Ouch, ouch, ouch. Everyone was like a ferocious beast, using their voices to vent their anger. When all the celestial dragons saw that the once arrogant St. Gielen could not stop Swain, their expressions were full of defeat, and they lost their aloof pride. Advertisement, kill. Swain further ordered. There was no sympathy in the indifferent tone. Only corpses can bring out Swain's attitude: defeat these gods, and wake up the world to let them see the weakness of the Draco and the world government. As the order was issued, the pirates suddenly turned into bloodthirsty thugs. The screams and calls for help were chaotic. When a bright knife pierced their bodies, they discovered that the so-called gods, like humans, would face death. They knelt on the ground and begged for their lives. Haha, when my son was kidnapped by you, he licked all your shoes clean, a man with a scar face said bitterly. His experience resonated with many people. Scarface originally had a happy family, but just because his son accidentally glanced at this person while he was kneeling on the ground, he was dragged into slavery. His wife was also Zan's legs were broken, and he cried to death in the room since then. From then on, he became a pirate when he was helpless. The celestial dragons were too big for him, so he had to bury his hatred in his heart. When Swain attacked the Holy Land, he was the one who killed the most Dracos. He even gave up his heads to his colleagues, he only wanted to kill his enemies. Until now, he finally met his former enemy. Don't kill me, I'll give you a lot of money. You like money very much, right? The Tianlong man kneeling on the ground begged. Scarface slapped him and sent him rolling. The other person was in pain and covering his bleeding face on the ground. Money? If I kill you, it will make me happiest. His eyes widened with anger, and the scar on his face wriggled like a centipede, looking like a Shinigami seeking his life. Ah! With a scream, the other party fainted from fright. Scarface picked up the knife and chopped off his legs, then cut off his fingers together. He had just fainted from fright, but when he woke up from the pain, he saw that his legs and fingers had been separated from him. A foul smell spread out, and I became incontinent. **ch. Before he could finish his words, his heavenly spirit cover was lifted. The tragic situation was difficult to see. Someone pulled Scarface and found that he was actually crying. Then he laughed again and kept chanting, "Son, Daddy has avenged you, and I'm here to find you." He's crazy, Morgan said in horror. But it's true. I went through all kinds of difficulties to get this news. Very good, I will share with you 20% of the profit from this news. The man who was reporting the news immediately beamed with joy and quickly left. Swain. You are really crazy. Compared with his skills, our war effort is nothing. Morgan shook his head and laughed. Then the projection of the battle between Marine and Whitebeard was turned off. In the screen, Whitebeard was fighting fiercely with Akainu. After Straw Hat defeated Garp with one punch, he kept running towards the execution platform. Fire Fist Ace seems to be successfully rescued. Chapter 137 Withdraw. Advertisement chirp. A long, piercing sound streaked across the sky, followed by an explosion. Withdraw. This is the sign of the pirate regiment's retreat. A short blast is a surprise attack, and a long blast is a retreat. Although it is a temporary core, the cadres at the middle and lower levels are all excellent. At this time, they can reflect their excellent quality and the advanced nature of the system. I saw that under their command, although the corps could not be called orderly, the basic order was still maintained very well. It will not turn the great retreat into a great rout. Company commander, why do we have to withdraw? We can kill all these Tianlong people in one go. Why do you care so much? Just obey the orders from your superiors. The company commander did not explain this, but responded coldly. Although he was a little confused, he must not be dissatisfied with the military orders. At this time, several loud noises suddenly erupted in Pangu City. Swain looked at it intently, and powerful domineering energy was reaching there like thunder and lightning. Swain asked in surprise. 5 elders is over. This made him feel very confused. No matter how much trouble the 5 elders made before, they never showed up. After thinking about it for a moment, he couldn't help but laugh. Yes, his battle may make people think that Pangu City is going to be wiped out with blood. If we don't take action, I'm afraid we will really become alone. His knowledge can see what the fight looks like in real time. Among the 4 admirals, except Luo, who is a bit weak, the other 3 are all capable of being generals. But even so, fighting 5 elders still feels a bit frivolous. After they saw the signal, they immediately retreated without any delay. The other party knew that it was difficult to retain these 4 people, so they began to take charge of cleaning up the situation. Saint Satan also came to the frontal battlefield at this time. He was the weaker one among the others, so he was naturally used to assist the powerful Saint Jielen. But when he saw Swain, standing in front of him leisurely, his face suddenly darkened. The body began to transform into a huge spider shape, holding a scepter in his hand. Swain slowly fell from the air and stood at the same height as Saint Satan. What a rare visitor, Swain said. Saint Satan shook the scepter slightly, and an imperceptible aura was released. The pirates who were watching the battle around seemed to have suddenly died suddenly, and their death was quite shocking. Are you prepared to die when you come here? Saint Satan said with a domineering tone. The 2 sides were at war with each other. Although it was their first time meeting each other, they seemed to have been enemies for many years and were extremely jealous. Swain smiled indifferently and said, I thought you old guys wouldn't take action. Boom. A black star-shaped array of light appeared at the feet of Saint Satan, and the aura coming out of it seemed to swallow everything. Laugh. Swain looked at the other party with cold eyes, standing in the air, and a blue star-shaped array also appeared under his feet. This aesthetic shape, like a rose with thorns, can sting the other person. Saint Satan frowned and glanced at Swain in surprise. But, advertisement even when he was distracted, countless iron chains were wrapped around his feet, locking all his feet like sharp swords. The iron chain is as thick as a steel bar, and it is also made of steel bars. Looking back again, what greeted us was Swain's whip kick. His feet were the color of the ocean, and the force of an earthquake that could shatter everything was held in his feet. Boom! It was like a cannonball exploding between the 2 of them. However, this is the sound of flesh colliding, which is enough to compare with the sound of bombs and enough to imagine the intensity of this blow. Who do you think I am? If you dare to stand opposite me so close, I really don't dare to kill you. Moreover, you have killed many of my little brothers. The other party's figure left as quickly as it came. But it goes faster than it came. It didn't stop until the magnificent high-rise house was smashed into ruins. The four admirals also came from a short distance away. They didn't see Swain kicking Saint Satan away. They noticed Swain's flushed face. Although they were a little confused, they just thought he was right. The joy of victory. When Swain saw his companion, a sincere smile finally appeared on his face. Let's go. Norton suddenly asked. Do you want to go back to Beehive Island? Swain turned his back to them and walked a few steps away. Kaido, go to the Marine headquarters. Avenge the past. Norton was immediately overjoyed and hurriedly followed him for revenge. Although he was a little unsure after fighting an old man just now, the best way to build confidence is to pick the weakling first. Swain told him this, and after practicing it many times, he regarded it as his own truth. Claire used her ability to levitate all the ships, which was the end of the war. The corpses of the comrades who died in battle were collected by their own logistics, and the injured accounted for 40%. Swain ordered Luo, He and Yishao to take these people back to Beehive Island first. Yishao's gravity fruit can also allow these ships to reach the sea safely. When Swain saw that the remaining personnel also looked tired, he asked Claire to take them back to Beehive Island, but he only let them sail in front to escort the wounded behind. The Holy Land still has a lot of foundation. Swain silently thought in his mind that he was caught off guard, but even so, he still killed 40% of the pirates under him. Just the two of us? Norton muttered. Enough. Swain was flying with his hands behind his back, his heroic sword-shaped eyebrows like an immortal on the sea. The Holy Land is not very far from the Marine headquarters, and it takes less than an hour to arrive nearby. Just from 1,000 meters away, you can hear shouts of death mixed with the sound of gunfire. The seawater here has also turned into ice, which has expanded the scope of the war in disguise. There are two people high in the sky observing the situation. Norton flapped his pink wings and made a grinning sound in the air, completely covering up the voices of the two of them. Are those Fire Fist Ace and Straw Hat Kid? Swain nodded upon hearing this. This war continued to develop according to the original plot as he knew. Suddenly, his expression changed. I saw that Akainu had already dominated Luffy, and his huge magma fist seemed to be a greeting from Shinigami. Chapter 138. Joining the war advertisement, Luffy. Ace's pupils dilated and he roared loudly. Luffy looked back at Ace, but didn't notice that Akainu had already moved forward. Everyone also heard the sound and looked this way. The most eye-catching people on this battlefield were here. The Marine soldier looked excited. Seeing Akainu approaching, Straw Hat Luffy would definitely die if he punched him. Being able to kill important enemies will cheer them up. The Shichibukai people also looked at him with cold eyes. Although the Straw Hat Boy had burst out with high potential, even conquerors, he was still an insignificant young man here. The weak mixed in the game of kings are, after all, nothing more than a small boat in the sea, tilted by the wind and waves. Ace was extremely fast and turned into a ball of fire, cutting through the air and arriving in front of Luffy. He wanted to use his body to block Akainu's molten fist and use his body to protect his younger brother. Even if he died here, he would not regret it. Relatives are the only thoughts he has left in this world, and they are also the sustenance of his soul. If they all die, it will be like a body without a soul, nothing more than a walking zombie. Ace. Luffy finally reacted, but it was too late for the two brothers to react again, which meant one of them had to die. At this time, a sound like the sound of winter came. It's so touching. Ace didn't turn around, but he could read the shock in the eyes of his father and many of his companions. Someone strong must have come to the rescue. That's for Emperor Swain. Why is he here? How can it be? Ace was protected by a wall that was completely black and had a rustic atmosphere. Marine's morale suddenly dropped like a chicken beaten by frost. But the eyes of two people were slightly happy, Shichibukai Hancock and Raglan. The former wanted to come over and make out with Swain, but was stopped by Swain's eyes. The latter also wanted to come over and make out with Swain in order to get the antidote. He had been feeling very uncomfortable recently. If you have a cold or anything, you have to take the poison given by Swain. You brat. Akainu's eyes were filled with anger. The planned sneak attack was actually destroyed by the mature young man in front of him. Red Lotus. Advertisement: a gorgeous slash, cut off, Akainu across the waist. Everyone looked into the sky again and saw a man in pink armor standing in the air, the wings behind him making a sound of piercing the air. That's Tetsuo, Norton, the strongest under Swain. Norton showed his true face half a year ago, and Swain has protected him enough, so naturally he will no longer be like a mummy, wrapping himself tightly in armor. Marine looked back and breathed a sigh of relief. It was just that the two of them came alone and did not bring many pirates with them. Many. Thank you. Ace seemed a little shocked. Who else would be a little disappointed after walking through the gate of hell once, let alone twice? Swain smiled and said, You're welcome. I'm here to help Juan Luffy. Luffy looked confused. My name is Monkey D. Luffy. Not Juan Luffy, you've made a mistake. Ace pushed Luffy's head down, preventing him from talking anymore. Swain turned around and looked towards Whitebeard and saw a smile on his face. Okay, at Marine headquarters, I really don't treat me as one of their own. The rescue of Ace this time was also a bit cautious. After all, Luffy's strength increased even more after Ace died. But there is no conflict of interest between him and Luffy. If he kills him for no reason, he will be pursued by the 3 forces of Marine Garp, 4 emperors, and the Revolutionary Army. What's more, he has offended the Tianlong people again. If this is true, the whole world will be his enemy. He's not that stupid. It can not only inhibit Luffy's growth, but also make friends with Red Hair, Whitebeard and Dragon. No matter how you calculate it, it is a good deal, and this deal can also make your reputation even higher. Thinking about it this way, saving Ace and Luffy would really make a fortune. Warring State's face was so gloomy that he could shed tears. He did not expect that after Swain attacked the Holy Land, he would not return to Beehive Island to prevent the Tianlong people from retaliating. Instead, he went to Marine headquarters to join in the fun. The key is that he doesn't have any extra fighting power to stop this idiot from doing whatever he wants. Swain, this war is between Marine and Whitebeard. I don't want you to get involved, otherwise Marine will not let it go. Warring State's words contained both threats and exhortations. He had spotted Swain and didn't want to jump into the battlefield, otherwise why would he have brought only 2 people here? This idea is the same as that of Blackbeard, who wants to come in and make a fortune and then leave, but Blackbeard wants to reap the benefits. To put it simply, Swain just wants to make a small profit and gain some familiarity, just to become famous. Blackbeard wants to seize Whitebeard's shock fruit in the position of 4 emperors. Chapter 139 Shanks appears advertisement. Let's give up. Our identities have already been decided. Warring States was stunned when he heard this. It makes sense, and I habitually think in terms of conflicts of interest. I really forgot that pirates and marines are already in a hostile relationship. Faced with this situation, the Warring States period had to get down from the execution platform. Although Garp looked like it had nothing to do with him, he still followed Sengoku and made his position known. He would not change his position just because his grandson was a pirate. He glanced at a place, and someone temporarily removed the projection. People from all over the world who were watching the battle suddenly saw the screen cut off and started talking one after another. What's going on? Why is there no screen? Just now I seem to see Warring State's fleet admiral talking to a young man. What young man? That's 4 emperors Swain. 4 emperors. Why is there another one? The situation is getting a bit serious. If things go wrong, the Marine headquarters may very well fall. No, Marine has a general there, how can? Several people who heard this sentence tacitly refused to answer. No matter how stupid they were, they could see that the power of 4 emperors would be the limit of the Marine headquarters. Now Swain is here again, and all I can say is that Marine is going to die. They are not the only ones who think this way. People all over the world are falling into this silent fear. The vast majority of countries without war are in a state of acceptance of the rule of Marine and world government. If this legal government comes to an end, they will definitely be the first victims. Marine headquarters. The cracks on the ground are like the wrinkles on an old man's face. Wars are burning everywhere, and the air is filled with smoke and the smell of blood, which makes people feel uncomfortable. When Warring States saw the gesture coming from a distance, he felt relieved, but the seriousness on his face did not change at all. He asked in a low voice, "What do you want? Don't think that I don't know that you attacked the Holy Land. Do you think those guys are easy to mess with?" Swain chuckled and said, "You know I want Fleet Admiral, right?" Warring States was too lazy to argue with him. How could he know what Swain wanted? Guessing other people's thoughts was not what he should do in his position. He said, "If you want to kill Sakazuki, I can only say that I will fight to the end, even to the last person standing." His attitude is very tough. Marine does not only have the current combat power, but also has a few old guys from the previous era. Fleet Admiral misunderstood me. If I hated General Akainu, I could just assassinate him when he was on a mission. Why'd I do these stupid things here? Advertisement. I remember that Straw Hat cleared Impel down, right? I want the sinners on the 6th floor. HMPH. I don't believe you can conquer those sinful generations, Warring States said fearfully. Would you like to know if you try it? All you need to do is give me their life paper. After Whitebeard is defeated, I will naturally give it to you. Swain shook his head helplessly. Warring States still didn't believe him. The conversation between the two was very short and did not arouse the suspicion of others. Swain's arrival not only disrupted Warring States' plans, but Blackbeard's plans were also caught off guard. The lose-lose situation he imagined did not happen, which made him secretly anxious. Although when Swain first appeared, there was a moment when he wanted to take his fruit. But he gave up in the blink of an eye, because Swain's strength was too strong, and he could only seize the fruit when the ability user was at his weakest and most relaxed. The original plan was to seize the shock fruit and then kill Whitebeard, but because of Swain's interference, Whitebeard will probably die. With his influence, he will come to encircle and suppress him once he survives. Thinking of this, I hated Swain even more for being nosy. Seeing that the negotiation was failing, Swain was about to take action when something changed again. Look, there's a huge ship there. I don't know which side shouted loudly. Everyone looked behind at the same time and saw a huge ship slowly breaking through the ice and heading here. It's not too late after all, said an energetic voice. Red Hair, Shanks, Luffy looked surprised, and even Ace was smiling. The war brought heavy gloom, but finally there was light between the brothers. 4 Emperors Shanks are friends, not enemies. The Warring States period is going completely crazy. 4 emperors are coming to this war. It's really scary. Kizaru's face became serious. It concerns my boss. If I don't take it seriously, I'm afraid I will lose my job. So what about the 3-4 emperors? Akainu exhaled heavily. Many marine soldiers looked desperate. These characters were all legendary. The pirates gathered here could probably buy 10 countries with their reward orders alone. Everyone, can you give me some face? Chapter 140 Negotiation. Advertisement. Although face is late, he will definitely not be absent. The red-haired man's words were groundbreaking. If other people say this, it may seem overestimating, but as 4 emperors, this sentence carries a lot of weight. Agreeing or disagreeing will arouse the favor of the big shot. But the war has reached fever pitch if it can be stopped with just one sentence. It would have been better to let the red-haired take Ace down with just one word and save so many lives. After Akainu heard the red-haired suggestion, he became furious and lava kept coming out of his body. What nonsense are you talking about? He took the opportunity to punch, and the magma exploded in front of the red hair like brilliant fireworks. This is not polite, General Akainu, the red-haired man said solemnly. A tide of domineering energy burst out from behind him, and the magma that could make people wreak havoc seemed very docile in front of this domineering energy, as if they had met a natural enemy. Stop! Warring States stopped him in time. He was already at odds with the 2-4 emperors, and if he angered the red-haired man again, the consequences would be disastrous. Seeing that the sneak attack failed, Akainu stepped aside angrily, as if he was the one who was attacked just now. Seeing this, the red-haired man just looked at Akainu deeply, and then seriously discussed with Sengoku, Swain, and Whitebeard. These 3 people are the protagonists of this battlefield. The 4 of them came together, and the cronies behind them also left here in a wise manner. Suddenly, the extremely powerful conquerors emerged from the soles of the red-haired feet and swept across the entire marine headquarters. Some marines and pirates who were still fighting were convulsed by the intoxicating aura and fell to the ground. Even some lieutenant generals could not withstand the pressure and fainted on the ground. When Warring States saw this, his expression changed, and he stopped worrying after seeing that his soldiers had just fainted. Swain was amazed in his heart. The domineering power of this Shanks is truly the best in the world, it's terrifying. The one with the white beard was the largest. He looked down and simply smiled, but the paleness on his face was hard to hide. Shanks saw that Swain had no objection. He was the one he understood least among the 4, and then he slowly said, I think that in the end, this war will only lead to losses for both sides, and even Marines' casualties will be more serious, or will it disappear directly? When Warring States heard this, although his expression was not good-looking, he could only admit that what Shanks said was the truth. After all, the 3-4 emperors joining forces are enough to destroy any force. This is also the reason why Marine has never abolished the Shichibukai system, and has tried every means to intensify the conflicts among the 4 emperors. I'm just afraid of the possibility of joining forces. Now there are 2-4 emperors in this department who may want to join forces. Although Swain became a 4 emperors late, he seems to be cunning. What's more, here comes another redhead who has been famous for a long time. Sengoku thought about it in his mind, and then said, Fire Fist Ace must be executed. He didn't look at Whitebeard's furious expression at all. If we let him continue to live, what dignity will we have in Marine? You want Ace to die for that thin noodle. You be ***************** D. Advertisement. Seeing that the 2 were about to quarrel again, Shanks quickly tried to dissuade him. Warring States Fleet Admiral, the result now is that Ace must be let go. As early as when he came here, he heard that Ace was the son of One Piece Roger. He decided in his heart that Ace must be rescued, so he naturally spoke in favor of Whitebeard. Only then did Sengoku realize that he was negotiating with 3 pirates, and he alone, Marine, would naturally not get support from either party. He rubbed his forehead in despair and began to have no expectations for this meaningless negotiation. How about I make a suggestion? Swain suddenly said. Whitebeard glanced at Swain dissatisfied, and his aura began to pour towards him. Swain's faceless confrontation and Furui's unwavering expression made people suddenly wake up. This young and outrageous boy in front of them is the 4 emperors. Let Fire Fist Ace never show up again and declare his death to the outside world. But I'm afraid that Sengoku Fleet Admiral won't agree to this suggestion. He smiled at the other party as if to remind Sengoku. Warring States cursed in his heart. You are so young, how can you be an old fox? Of course he knew that Swain was making demands of him, but it seemed that he still wouldn't give up on those criminals' life papers. If the Warring States period wanted their headquarters not to fall, they could only agree to Swain's request. Well, this method is good, he almost gritted his teeth and agreed. For a moment, he wanted to step down from this Fleet Admiral position. There are the world government 5 elders suppressing it above, and the 4 emperors below trying to make a move. Being caught in the middle can really affect the whole body. Just like the current situation. Swain then showed a satisfied smile. Whitebeard and Red Hair didn't know the little secret between them. Seeing that Warring States recognized the situation, he then asked Whitebeard with his eyes. I think it's not bad. Whitebeard replied hoarsely. The previous battle had already caused his internal injuries. As for the matter of announcing death to the outside world, it is not a real death anyway. There is nothing more worthy of his attention than his family. Well, so be it. Swain agreed. Warring States seemed to be 10 years older, and he walked with a slight stoop. Or Aokiji came to him and asked, Are you okay? He waved his hand and said, It's settled. Aokiji was silent after hearing this, not knowing what he was thinking. Warring States Fleet Admiral, don't forget to give me my things, Swain reminded. When Warring States heard this, he almost fell down. The thought of resigning in my heart became more and more swollen. There are less than 100 people standing on the battlefield now, and there are only a few dozen people left on Marine's side. This meeting will be left in the hearts of every one of them. It was the most humiliating day for them. If the master humiliates his ministers and dies, the Warring States period will be their king. Swain was holding a stack of life papers, greeting Norton when it was time to leave, when Whitebeard shouted from the distance. Hey, little devil, today. Thank you so much for saving Ace and that little guy. A group of injured squad captains stood on the Moby DK and waved to Swain. Chapter 141. Message jam advertisement: a marine warship is sailing against the current on the sea, but the difference is that the flag on the warship seems to have been burned by fire, leaving only half of the flag fluttering in the wind. Did you negotiate with them? Norton asked in surprise after hearing Swain's story. Swain put down the coffee, leaned on the seat, his movements became more mature, and said, yes, otherwise Marine will be kicked off my list that day. It was easy for him to destroy the Marine headquarters. He only needed to create a natural disaster-level tsunami. Even if Aokiji stopped him, he would not be able to do it. But if Swain really wants to do that, the red hair will definitely stop him. It can be seen that the red hair seems to be looking for a balance. Balance the various contradictions in this world. Swain guessed this, and a hint of ridicule appeared on his face unconsciously. He felt that the red hair's approach was a bit taken for granted. The world had been corrupted and riddled with holes under the rule of the celestial dragons. The people at the bottom have suffered terribly from being exploited by the superiors, which can be seen from the rate of increase in pirates in recent years. There is no chance of an adventurer like Luffy surviving. If one were careful to collect statistics, I am afraid that the majority of people would break up their families and become thieves because they could not afford the heavenly gold from the celestial dragons. There are only two ways to change this situation. 1. Revolution. 2. Reshape. Unlike Long, Swain took the second path. Disrupt all the order in this world, completely tear apart the over-whitewashed piece, and then reshape the world. The road is long and far away, I will search up and down. Attacking the Holy Land is only the first step of his plan, and there is still a long way to go. Norton was talking endlessly, but he didn't expect that Swain had already wandered into a fuzzy state. He finally remembered something. Why haven't I seen the black-bearded teach you mentioned? Blackbeard? Swain chuckled and said, I'm probably playing Battle Royale with Whitebeard. Whitebeard is not dead. With Teach's timid and cautious attitude, he will not appear in this sea for a long time, dormant like a poisonous bee. Give you a fatal blow at the critical moment. What do we do next? Contact the Morgans and reveal the details of the destruction of the Holy Land. The Birdman? Would he agree? Yes, his nose is more useful than his eyes. As long as Swain reveals a little bit of information in this regard, Morgans will be cautious. Even if he doesn't come in person, he will send his cronies to investigate. By that time, Swain had completely pushed himself to the forefront. With another wave of his arms, the forces that dared to resist will surely come to Beehive Island to seek refuge like a swarm of bees. If the 4 emperors were not ranked before, then he must let Swain's name take the top spot this time. A week later, the news did not go as Swain imagined, but became increasingly calm. Advertisement: it's really a bit abnormal. He was a little skeptical. Had Morgan's journalistic ethics gone? What about the urgency of the news? Somewhere in the sea. Morgan's was flying very fast in a hot air balloon. His eyes were quite panicked, and the embarrassment on his body made him look like a drowned rat. Assholes. These bastards. They destroyed my base again, he suddenly cursed angrily. Unlike Swain thought, he did not lose his professional ethics. The world government seemed to have expected it. Instead of dealing with post-war issues first, it directly ordered the top espionage organization CP0 to work with Marine to destroy his news base. This is the best way to deal with this matter, directly from the source of public opinion. It's a pity that even though it's been a week, it can only be sent to a few countries. Morgans looked a little regretful. He felt a bit remiss in not letting the whole world see such explosive news. Looks like I need to ask some friends for help. Morgan's eyes are full of perseverance, and it's this mentality that has allowed him to reach this point. Beehive Island. After a year of development and construction on the island, you can see that the buildings here have begun to take shape. Originally living by the mountains and living by the rocks, Swain abandoned it, which was really hard for him to accept. He specially recruited a group of craftsmen to carry out large-scale construction projects on the island. Wano had the raw materials and Golden City had the money, so they all supplied blood to Beehive Island. The current center of the island is no worse than some aristocratic countries, but most of them have branched out and live based on their merits. Then, Swain once again acted as a matchmaker, betrothing many women who had no place to live, or even slaves, to meritorious soldiers. Let them get married and have children here, and treat Beehive Island as their home. The woman who was initially assigned was still a little uneasy, fearing that her future husband would be as scary as the rumors. This was also the reason for the world's conquest, but after they lived for several months, they discovered that these terrible pirates in the rumors turned out to be poor people. Some of them could not even afford the heavenly gold like them, so they were bought. Go and become a pirate out of anger. They are all the same, they all have a common dream, they want to have a peaceful country. Working at sunrise and resting at sundown, Even a plain life like men farming and women weaving is their luxury. But Swain is about to bring them to realize all of this. From their initial conflict to their current worship and admiration, seeing is believing. Unknowingly, these people who should have been reduced to slaves and starved to death are now living happily on the small island of Beehive Island. Like a paradise. Chapter 142, Resignation of the Warring States period. Advertisement shortly after. Although the news has been restricted by the world government, paper cannot cover the fire after all. Or there may be other forces secretly adding fuel to the flames, or it may be the result of word of mouth. Anyway, the struggle between the White Group and the Marine headquarters only ended with the death of Fire Fist Ace. The real big deal was the attack on the Holy Land. The participating countries were all surprised when they heard that the Holy Land was attacked. The number of dead dragons alone was enough to boil the sea. How is this possible? Could this news be from the Tianlong people to test our attitude? King Liku sat on the throne, surrounded by only the people who planned the coup by Swain. There was also horror in Violet's beautiful eyes. No, it won't happen. Those people pay most attention to their own reputation. Even if they test us, they won't find it difficult to tell such low-grade lies. She continued her analysis. Besides, if it's Swain, I think that person can do something so crazy. Sir Swain. Rebecca said worriedly. Don't worry, that gentleman is the Four Emperors. Rebecca's father comforted her. He is the most powerful warrior I have ever seen. His eyes were full of conviction. What about the heavenly gold this time? King Liku waved the letter in his hand helplessly. This is a bill temporarily distributed by the world government to each member country, which shows the protection fee paid. King Liku pinched the paper hard, as if he wanted to tear it into pieces. It is collected twice a year. How can the people have so much money to hand it over to him? They don't care about our life and death at all. Due to Swain's destruction, all the heavenly dragon families in the Holy Land met and decided to levy another heavenly gold to repair the palace and appease the losses of the heavenly dragons of each family. At the same time, there is an order for each country to recommend brave and capable warriors to serve as bodyguards. Then release criminals from prisons in various countries to become their slaves. But the law that criminals should be slaves was cancelled again. Considering that they might conflict with the celestial dragons, civilians with good conduct were allowed to be slaves. National decrees are changed back and forth like magic by these countries, which are no longer in compliance with the law. But it doesn't matter if the government decree is beneficial to ordinary people, but it actually makes civilians with good behavior become the slaves of the celestial dragons. This has offended the public. The dissatisfied people raised the banner of protest one after another, demanding that the government abolish the civilian slaves established by the Tianlong people. Popular sentiments in various kingdoms were raging, and strikes, school strikes, and market strikes were like a prairie fire. Some stupid people in power don't want to offend the Tianlong people, but instead use the army to put these protesting people in jail. This has once again intensified the conflicts among all strata of society. Angry people are like explosive barrels, and now they only need a fuse. Revolutionary Army Headquarters. Long's office is very simple, with a few chairs sitting around a desk. Sabo took off the hat on his head and said, according to the intelligence collected, protests have broken out in many places. There was only one uprising, and it was quickly suppressed by the army. Ivankov looked quite exaggerated and said loudly, this is a good opportunity. We should save these countries, dragon? Advertisement. Then he turned his big face and looked expectantly at Long sitting on the front seat. There is plenty of light in the room, and the light hits Long's face, making his face more three-dimensional. He thought for a moment and said, we should appropriately channel the people's anger. As he leaned back, a feeling of comfort came from his back. He rubbed his chin with his palm and pondered for a moment. Standing up, the others kept moving. Then let's settle it. Yes. Then let the Revolutionary Army be the trigger. Marine Headquarters. Warring States was talking to an old man. The messenger rushed in eagerly to report the information, but when he saw this scene, he withdrew with interest. There was a look of surprise in his eyes, because the old man hadn't shown his face for a long time. It was even said that he was rumored to have passed away. It's okay, I don't care about these details. Warring States explained the soldier's reckless behavior just now. The old man in front of me, who seemed to have a strong figure, said cheerfully, you are still the same as before. I was much more serious than you when I was working on Fleet Admiral. The troubles I encountered are similar to what you are in now. At the end of the words, he burst into laughter. Warring States understands that this is not ridicule, but a feeling of sympathy. After all, when Cyborg was doing Fleet Admiral, Roger, Golden Lion, Whitebeard, Rox and other big pirates were more troublesome and powerful than in the new era. But isn't this Swain the heir to Rox? Although there is no concrete evidence, looking at this son's strength and ambition, it can be proved that he is a descendant of Rox. Cyborg Kong pondered for a moment and nodded in agreement. Invisibly, the relationship between the two of them has become much closer because of Swain. So, this is why you're stepping down as Fleet Admiral? No, it's time for me to retire. Gang Dekong carefully observed this former subordinate and said helplessly, at this time of great turmoil that has not been seen in 100 years, how can you? And if you resign, who will be the Fleet Admiral in this time of conflict? Cyborg Kong continued to persuade. In a short period of time, there is really no Fleet Admiral who is more skillful than Sengoku. I think Kuzan can do this. Hearing Sengguo's reply, he was stunned for a moment, but he didn't expect that his successor had even been recommended. After experiencing this battle, Warring States suddenly realized that his mental strength were not as good as before. This kid Kuzan. Cyborg Kong rubbed his forehead, that lazy figure appeared in his mind, and he shook his head secretly. Chapter 143 Business on Beehive Island Advertisement. There was something strange in Swain's eyes, and he looked at the life paper on the table and fell into deep thought. After a while, he finally understood. Sure enough, you have matured with age. Although his words were disparaging, his expression seemed to be praising him. There is a paper of life that has been standing still, which is a sign that the approximate location has been found. But I just don't know who this person is, because when Swain got these, all the marks on them were erased, leaving only traces that can be found. He came to me right after he was released from prison, but he didn't know who this person could be. He was a little worried in his heart. Most likely he was a friend rather than an enemy. How could the criminals on the 6th floor of Impel Down be marine spies or friendly forces? Then he waved the guards over and brought over the human skin masks that were harvested in the Holy Land. Open the wooden box with sandalwood, and a lifelike three-dimensional mask with facial features appears in front of you. Swain felt a little chill in his heart. This was probably a mask carved out by some celestial dragon with some special quirks. It's a bit like AI face changing in later generations. After all, what you can't get is always in turmoil. After Swain put it on, he took out a mirror and looked at it. I was a little surprised in my heart. If I didn't know it, I might have thought that the person in the mirror was not me. Even his temperament has changed somewhat. If Swain's previous temperament was sunny and energetic, he is somewhat feminine under this mask. That's not bad. Swain felt satisfied in his heart. No one can tell anyone what happened today, yes. Many guards responded solemnly. Beehive Island is no longer the size it once was, and Swain has merged some rich islands together. He also ordered that all ports should be opened, and trade could be carried out internally and externally to become a real country. Walking on a street paved with cement, there is very little dust on the road, which has obviously been cleaned up by the staff in time. There are also some shops on the street, but most of them are in the service industry, such as pubs and restaurants. This is what Swain asked Roland to do. What was once Swain's little nanny has become the financial king, who is now in charge of several islands. Anyone who wants to open a store under Swain's jurisdiction must obtain her permission. Nowadays, there are wars all over the world. Under the protection of Swain, there is rare commercial vitality here. Businessmen valued profit over life, so the commercial value of Beehive Island was naturally in their eyes. Roland's status was almost the same as that of the other 4 kings. She has become a star among the stars, and businessmen are trying their best to please her, just to get a place. As Swain walked on the street, he could clearly feel the excitement. Although it was not as busy as a bustle, at a glance, he could not see the end of the crowd on the street. Many of the people here were robbed by Swain from other places, and many were obtained from fighting against human traffickers. That's why he was able to fill half of the island in a short period of time. In later generations, he knows how many talents have how much power. What's more, Wano's seastone industry and Jody's military industry both require many people to implement assembly line production. Advertisement around mealtime, several young and delicate women appeared in front of the restaurant, wearing neat uniforms and holding flyers to introduce their products to the guests. The competition is quite fierce, Swain said, because there were already several beautiful young ladies approaching Swain with smiles on their faces. This young master, please come to our fresh fish and barbecue restaurant. Sir, our Dessa barbecue restaurant is very authentic. Please come to our store. 7 or 8 women surrounded Swain, which attracted other similar people on the street to point and point. Swain didn't know what to do, and he saw a pitiful fishman girl behind them, looking at him helplessly. It's you, he designated. When the fishman girl saw that Swain had designated her, she was overjoyed and trotted to his side. The smile on his face looked very comfortable, and he said, My lord, please come to our grilled fish restaurant. Ah, why are you a fishman? That's right. Forget it, how can any fishmen eat fish? Isn't it just eating their own compatriots? The expressions of several people changed instantly, and their voices were filled with dissatisfaction and meanness. Fishmen are the lowest existence in any area where humans live. Swain's face was stern, pretending to be angry, and then he stopped the mouths and left the venue without interest. I'm sorry. The fishman girl leaned over and apologized. Swain waved his hands quickly to show that he didn't care. Were you sold here? Yes, my lord. Don't call me lord. But your status must be very noble. Grandpa told me that when I see a human noble, I must serve him well. How do you know that I am noble? Swain was a little confused. He touched his face subconsciously and found that it had not returned to its original state. Because your clothes and shoes are very expensive, she said innocently. Furthermore, your clothes are only owned by important figures such as Lord Ming. King Ming. Swain turned around and looked, and sure enough he saw a pirate flag-like pattern. This was specially designed by Roland, and can only be worn by senior officials above the brigade commander of the Swain pirates. And different patterns will represent different levels. This is also the best way to identify yourself in the early stages. The clothes Swain wore were of the highest level, but only a few people knew him. Most people only knew that the pirate flag represented nobility. I don't know that the pirate flag on Swain's clothes represents the king. Lead the way. I've been to Fishman Island and eaten here. I'd be angry if it wasn't authentic, Swain said with a smile. Seeing that the guest was so kind, The girl gained some courage. Don't worry, you will definitely be satisfied. The two looked like brothers and sisters, laughing as they walked. Little did they know, there was a shadow following them silently, observing their every move. Chapter 140 Hotel Advertisement. There were constant shouts and shouts on the street, but Swain was so dazzling by the midday sun that he looked so quietly attentive. He was in a daze, and it turned out that what he was pursuing was actually just a stable life. It wasn't until he noticed someone tugging at the corner of his clothes that he realized he had been standing there for a moment. Sir? The fishman girl called softly. She thought Swain was going to change his mind, so she looked a little nervous. Swain nodded lightly, indicating for her to continue walking forward, and then patted his chest. After walking for nearly 10 minutes, he arrived at the recommended restaurant. He looked at the fishman girl in front of him with some surprise. He must have worked hard all the way, but no one accepted his invitation. The racial concept is a bit serious, Swain muttered. I thought of the murlocs sold in the Sabodi Islands, and it had been like this for many years. High risk means high income, and people are even willing to take captives from Fishman Island. Even if it is the territory of Whitebeards, the temptation of money makes it difficult for many people to move their legs. Looking at the girl who was explaining her characteristics non-stop, Swain suddenly had an idea. If I support the fish people and allow them to develop here, and send out a signal of accommodating all races to the outside world, will more people take the initiative to come here? Swain gave this idea across, and it is probably very difficult to realize, just because he is a pirate. As long as there is this kind of relationship, no matter how tempting it is, people will not flock to it, and only some businessmen who are crazy about profit will. Then I'll have grilled shrimp, salmon sashimi, sour salted fish soup, a large steak and roasted whole lamb. Okay, sir. The fishman girl greeted Swain and ran to the kitchen with the menu. Like a child who wants to take credit and desperately wants to be recognized by his parents. He was the only diner in the shop, and it was so deserted that it made people feel a little nervous. After a while, two people, one old and one young, appeared from the kitchen, holding appetizing food in their hands, and the aroma spread to his nose along the air. It smells so good. Swain took a little taste and immediately praised the blue-skinned old fishman in front of him. I can't stand your praises, as long as you enjoy your meal. The old fishman smiled so hard that the wrinkles on his face were piled together. Swain wiped his mouth with a tissue and asked, Do you have a master-servant relationship? No, he is my grandfather, the girl quickly explained loudly. She seemed a little afraid that someone would say she was a slave. The old fishman took it very seriously and laughed and said, Don't worry, sir, my granddaughter is always like this. Swain raised his eyes and saw that the old fishman looked a little nervous. He seemed to be worried about whether his granddaughter's tone would make Swain angry. If you talk like this in normal times, you will inevitably be labeled as dissatisfied with the human race and be severely punished. He knew how to deal with the world, so he asked in a low voice, Don't worry, customers, our new customers are free of charge. Seeing his cautious look, Swain smiled and said, You're a kid, I can understand the child's words. The old fishman felt the aura of superiority on Swain's body and bent his waist a little further. Swain had no intention of talking to him and was just minding his own meal. People are iron rice as steel. Advertisement. While Swain was eating, his face suddenly changed, his eyes widened, and his expression became serious. Sir, what's wrong with you? The fishman girl asked nervously. If such a big shot were to eat up his stomach in our restaurant, the two of them would definitely be killed. She looked at her grandfather anxiously, but he was very calm and quickly asked her to get some coconut milk. Swain took a few sips before he recovered. Cough, cough, cough. I really thought I was going to choke to death. If that were the case, he would probably make people laugh for eternity. Thanks, I'm so sorry for causing you such an experience. The old fishman's attitude was extremely humble. Swain reached into his pocket, and when he touched it, he remembered that he didn't bring any money. After eating and drinking enough, it would be really embarrassing if he didn't give money to others. The old fishman seemed to have expected it, and still repeated, New customers are free. Swain rubbed his nose awkwardly. On the other hand, the girl on the side didn't know why and asked naively, Grandpa, our store doesn't have this rule. The scene was a bit embarrassing, and the corners of the old fishman's mouth twitched a few times. At this moment, 3 soldiers in uniforms walked in. There is a big word, Nuo, in the center of the shirt, which means that he is a subordinate of Norton, one of the 4 kings. Sit down carelessly, as if you were at home. Old man, hurry up and cook some dishes for me. Hurry up, I'm starving, bring me the unfinished wine from last time. The attitude of the 3 people was extremely arrogant, and they kept uttering curse words. The fishman girl was so frightened that she hid behind the old fishman and said, There is no unfinished wine left last time. These people are all bad guys. Apparently the 3 of them patronized this restaurant frequently. Swain heard some clues and frowned, somewhat dissatisfied with the bad habits of his men. Although he started out as a pirate, he gradually pulled this team towards the military side, no longer a group that only cares about personal interests. But, green hills are easy to change, but nature is hard to change. There are always some people who can't control themselves and want to transcend the system. Swain was holding the cup and slamming it down. Bang. Not a drop of water fell out of the cup. The 3 people turned their heads when they heard the sound, just in time to see Swain's dissatisfied expression. The 2 of them looked at each other, stood up and walked towards Swain. Boy, do you know who I am? the taller man wanted to grab Swain's shoulder. But when he touched it, his body felt like an electric shock. I was surprised and wondered, what's going on? Why can't my body move? Another person was a little confused when he saw his companion standing motionless. When he wanted to ask, he found that he could only move his eyes and could not make a sound at all. It's like being cast on a body-holding spell. Chapter 145 Absalom. Advertisement. The old fishman kept silent and took his granddaughter to hide aside. Just now he felt a breath from Swain, as if he was being targeted by a giant beast from the deep sea. This is a strong man. The leader also realized this. Some people said sternly, I am a subordinate of King Dong, you'd better. Before he finished speaking, he saw Swain's eyes glancing towards him. His body suddenly felt as if he had fallen into an ice cellar, and his whole body was trembling. He mustered up the courage to look at Swain, and saw a yellow pirate flag logo on the corner of his shirt. Norton. Swain snorted. There is only one person on the whole island who can call Dong Wong by his full name like this. He didn't understand why he didn't understand who the person in front of him was. He quickly knelt down and said with trembling words, It's a little one. No eyes. Swain didn't want to get into any more trouble with them, so he simply said, Get out. The three of them didn't dare to neglect what they said, and quickly rolled up on the ground. Remember to take more care of this hotel. I don't want it to be so deserted next time I come back. The three of them stopped rolling and nodded like chickens pecking at rice. Thank you so much, sir. The old fishman took his granddaughter and thanked him. Being able to drive away the local snakes in this area so easily shows that the person in front of him is either powerful or powerful. Anyway, it's always good to get closer to him, after all. As Swain said just now, business in the future will definitely be much better than before. The girl didn't know as much as the old fishman, so she just looked at Swain with admiration. Sir, can you tell I your name? The girl asked. Swain looked at this young girl and felt a little funny in his heart. Sure enough, no matter which ethnic group, girls will worship the strong. The old fishman glared at Aya angrily and blamed her for being ignorant. Call me Weiss. Yeah, Aya smiled sweetly, and there was a hero in her heart. Swain was far away from the fish shop. With a trace of impatience between his brows, he shouted towards someone. Aren't you tired after following me for so long? No one responded. Swain didn't care and directly pulled out the western sword from his waist. The sword rotates in the hand, like a toy, and can be slashed out at will. The sword roared and hissed, and the air was clearly divided into two halves. I saw that there was no one there, and there was a cry of B***********, leaving a trail of blood. Swain did not use his fruit power, which easily exposed himself. In the hotel, he even asked Aya to buy a set of clothes to prevent anyone from recognizing him. Now his identity is a swordsman named Weiss. Can you come out now? He asked jokingly. Advertisement. Sure enough, the words just fell. A somewhat embarrassed figure appeared. He was wearing a round high hat decorated with a logo, ball-shaped earrings in both ears, a shirt and trousers, a high-collar windbreaker, and long boots. Absalom, one of the Shichibukai, Moriya's subordinate, and a user with the ability of the transparent fruit. Brother, we may have some misunderstandings, Absalom said with a smile. After a brief period of astonishment, Swain also became somewhat interested. Absalom must have come here because of Moriya's instructions. So what is his purpose here? The results are already out. He wants the shadow of Kaido and the three major cadres. That's what his ability is. With the personality and combat ability of the Shadow Master, if a contract is made that leaves the original master's nature, the memory of the original master will not be retained. The original owner's fruit ability will no longer be carried. The longer the shadow and corpse merge, the zombie will turn from initial rebellion to complete obedience. One thing is that it is very afraid of salt. Zombies that rely on devil fruit abilities will be purified as long as salt with the energy of the sea is stuffed into their mouths. If the main body dies, the shadow will disappear and the zombie will die. The higher the Shadow Master's combat ability, the stronger the zombie will be. However, he cannot carry the fruit ability of the original owner, and relies entirely on physical skills and combat skills. Even so, Kaido, who does not rely on fruit abilities, is still ridiculously strong for most pirates. Thinking of this, Swain started to think twice and said, there must be some misunderstanding, but why are you following me? The two looked at each other and smiled, putting aside the conflict just now. Of course I am looking at you, my dear brother. You are as beautiful as a tree in the wind, and your steps are like a king's. I can't help but follow you with admiration in my heart, ha ha ha. That's it, my name is Weiss, my name is Simon Nelson. The two became familiar with each other again, like friends they hadn't seen for many years. Absalom came over and whispered, brother, I hit it off with you, how about I help you do a big business? Swain smelled a bad breath, quickly held his breath, and said angrily, of course, I'm here to make a lot of money. Really? Absalom said in surprise. Just be afraid of not being greedy, only by being greedy can we cooperate. He didn't notice Swain's strangeness, and continued to move closer and said, do you have a pass to Wano country? If so. Before he finished speaking, Swain couldn't bear the bad breath and slapped him. With a snap, Swain exerted a little force, and there was a red handprint on Absalom's face. Absalom was stunned for a moment, then became angry and said, you, brother, don't be angry, I just saw a fly on your face, I helped you clean it up. This is no reason. What did you say just now? A pass, right? I have it. Swain quickly changed the subject. That's so. Awesome. Absalom couldn't help but continue to have an attack. If he really takes action, he may not be his opponent. He said with hatred in his heart. After I complete the task, I will kill you.